The Met Office has issued a risk-to-life warning as the country braces for 40 centimetres of snow.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 9th of March. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel, Webster.
Leading the news this morning, it is the weather, and the country is facing major disruption today as the Met Office warns of blizzard conditions coming around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Travel delays, road and rail closures, power cuts and a potential risk to life and property are expected as amber warnings come into effect.
France and Britain are working on a deal to stop small boats crossing the Channel ahead of a meeting between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron tomorrow. The summit follows the PM's announcement of a new hardline approach on illegal migration.
Gary Lineker has said he will continue to speak up after he was criticised for controversial tweets comparing the government's migrant policy to that of Germany in the 1930s.
And the Princess of Wales dressed in army camouflage yesterday as she joined Irish Guards in the snow for battlefield injury training. The exercise on Salisbury Plains, her first duty with the Guards since becoming colonel last year.
My grandfather, my mother's father, was an Irish Guard.
Oh, how fantastic.
It is fantastic. He fought in the Battle of the Somme, First World War. So we did. So your views on... I know actually a lot of ex-service people watch us and it'd be interesting to hear from you and memories. Were you in the Irish Guards? GBViews at gbnews.uk and let us know where you're watching and listening from. And you can also tweet at GBNews. Let's bring you this top story. Weather warnings today. Blizzard conditions expected to cause major disruption as the Arctic snap continues to grip the country.
Yes, the Met Office has issued an amber warning from 3 o'clock this afternoon with 40 centimetres of snow predicted in parts of the UK. OK, if you're out and about driving, you've been warned to avoid non-essential travel. Road closures could leave you stranded, and particularly on motorways. The disruption could also affect power lines, mobile phone network coverage as well. Well, let's speak now to Stuart Masson. He's the editorial director of The Car Expert. Good morning to you, Stuart. And I suppose with it being March, a lot of the winter precautions that many motorists might take in the dead of winter have been kind of forgotten about. So we need a reminder probably of what we should be doing if we are setting out today.
Good morning, guys. Yes, absolutely. The first thing, of course, is that if you don't need to drive, today's a really good day to work from home if you can, if that works for you. If you do need to drive, then you need to be very careful as you're heading out onto the roads. As you said, this is something that we're not necessarily expecting in March. So what you might find is that not all of the roads have been gritted the same way that you would expect them to be in the depths of winter. That can be car parks, side streets, laneways. If you're driving to work, you might take 10 or 12 different streets or roads. Only one of them sort of has to not be gritted to be quite dangerous. So it's really important to just take care and take lots of time when you're on the road.
Dear God, I'm actually thinking about this. I'm thinking that, you know, those sort of gritters and whatever are in a constant state of readiness. But you're saying that because the calendar has moved on, everybody's shut up shop and gone home.
No, I think the main roads will certainly be gritted. That's not going to be the main issue, but a lot of it will be things like shopping centre car parks and school car parks or work car parks, little laneways and side streets that are maintained by local companies, not necessarily by councils or the highways agencies. So those are the roads that can catch you out. Even if you're only doing 10, 15 miles an hour, hit the brakes on a slippery road and you can just slide straight into a pedestrian or another car. So you've got to be really gentle and really careful and really aware of the situation.
The situation we've got to be aware of comes into effect from 3 o'clock this afternoon, Stuart.
That's right. So we're expecting potentially really serious conditions up and down the UK. So it might be lots of snow. It can be black ice, which you can't necessarily see, but makes the road very slippery. So if you have to be out and about driving, make sure you've got good visibility. You've cleared all the glass, the windscreen, the windows on your car, the headlights, the tail lights, and that you're being very gentle and smooth when you're driving. Take your time. You're better off to be 10 minutes later getting to where you're going than not getting there at all, obviously.
And that old chestnut, never pour hot water on the windshield. I can't believe that people still do that when they're trying to scrape ice off. But, I mean, it just instantly cracks and implodes, doesn't it?
You will almost certainly shatter your windscreen, so best not to. The best way is get out there and spend 5 minutes scraping it off with your ice scraper, and do it manually. Get all the way around the car, all of the windows, not just a little porthole in front of the driver, but all the windows all the way around the car.
Stuart, appreciate it. Thanks very much indeed for the update. North of the country,
morning,
from
guys.
3 o'clock this afternoon, from about Stoke-on-Trent, further north, worst affected. My son was out and about in Surrey yesterday, and he was driving, and his windscreen shattered.
No.
Shattered. And do you know why?
Why?
Because there was a gritter lorry coming in the opposite direction, and a little piece of grit, boom, hit the windscreen. Matter of fact, a number of pieces of grit. So it was like a shotgun effect. You wouldn't get that
I will do
pen
in a
from
minute.
me.
I'll get
Will
it
you?
in a minute. Yeah.
Might,
Not right now.
Okay, well, that's okay, because it's needed.
I know, I'll get it in a minute.
But, so the grit goes out like a shotgun effect, like this.
Well, they could have died.
Well, yes, and it all peppered the windscreen.
Was he too close to the...
Well, I don't know.
Were
but
they on
I
the
thought,
other side of the road, did you
I
say?
thought it was a bit strange. I'd never heard of that happening. The grit breaks your winds. But apparently what happened, it made this indentation, and then later on, as he was driving down a bigger road faster, it started to crack.
Did he just not want to pick you up and take you somewhere?
I wouldn't drive with him.
Did you actually see the evidence? Was
I
this all
haven't
just
seen the evidence. I'm
fabricated?
told. I'm told all this.
Okay.
But what I do know is been on trying to get a windscreen replacement, and it takes a long time. For instance, can you sue a gritter lorry? Could you sue them? Could you say, oh, it takes too much trouble, you give up?
Exactly.
Dan Flavey with us now, our head of digital here at the station. Dan, how big a concern, you deal with what people are talking about, what they're logging on and looking at and whatever. Are they worried about the weather situation?
Weather remains one of the biggest things that people are looking at right now digitally. I actually just looked online just before I came on, took a quick check to see when it comes to... We've seen the newspapers are talking all about Meghan Markle again, we're talking about Rishi Sunak's migrants deal, and I took a look to see just how much search is there in weather in the UK right now on Google versus Rishi Sunak or Meghan Markle, and it's actually almost exactly the same. There are 64 times more number of people searching the weather in the UK right now than there is Meghan Markle or Rishi Sunak. So as much as we're talking about the migrants deals and Meghan Markle and the royal family, weather is what people really care about.
Because it's affecting people's lives. But Isabel wants to stop this conversation now and talk about the things that people aren't really interested in.
Yes, I do. Let's talk about, then, what is going on with Rishi Sunak and Macron. They're going to be having this meeting. Is this le bromance, or are tensions beginning to build? We had the Windsor framework last week. Things seem to be easing with Europe. Now Europe's outraged at his illegal migration bill. Where are we at?
Yeah, Emmanuel Macron is hoping that this meeting is going to be the starting of a building of a new relationship with Britain, because obviously when it came to Boris Johnson, they had their fractious relationship over Brexit, and then we had Liz Truss. I don't know if Emmanuel Macron's a friend or a foe, and that just went down incredibly badly. They're hoping that tomorrow, wipes the slate clean, they can begin again. But while it may be all, lovely-dovey between the two of them tomorrow, I'm not sure that's how Rishi Sunak's backbenchers are going to see this, because we're talking about another migrant deal with France to help stop the small boats crossing the English Channel. But we've done deals with France last year, the year before that, and there's a number of Conservative backbenchers saying, hold on, we keep giving more and more money to France, and what we're not seeing is the results. We need to see the results before we give them.
It's what I don't understand. Why would France want to hold on to migrants and say, yeah, you pay us money and we'll hold on to the migrants? It's as big a drain on their social system as it is on ours. So I honestly look at this from the French point of view and think, what's in it for us?
A lot of money.
If I was France...
A lot of money. But I think that's exactly what Conservative backbenchers are thinking. They're thinking we can also see it from the French side, but why are we therefore paying them all this money for it not to suit us? It's now suiting France more because we're giving them this money. It's still not suiting us, and they see this as just a bit concerning, to be honest with you.
Do you know what I see when I look? Let's run some pictures of the two leaders there again. We'll have a look at them. Ken Dodd, do you remember Ken Dodd? He used to have these characters called the Diddy Men. At least let's see it. And we're going to deal with two little tiny men. They're little tiny diminutive men wearing tiny little suits.
With huge brains.
Well,
and bank balances.
they're little
and
tiny
power.
people.
So I
they're
don't
little
think
tiny. They're not. You look at statesmen like John Kerry or something, big guys. Look at these two. Look at them, little tiny people.
Well, let's talk about the big
Do you know the
brains.
songs of the Diddy Men? We are the Diddy Men, Diddy Doddy Diddy Men. No, you don't.
I'll be honest, Eamonn, that's gone right over my head.
No, OK. Well, there you are, two little Diddy men, as Isabel said, with a lot on their minds and big decisions to make.
But what we've got the real problem is, though, that Rishi Sunak has got this plan, and the plan is to stop these small boats. But what I think a lot of people can't get their heads around in the political sphere is the more they talk about this, the more voters are aware of it, the more they're aware that there is this migration issue. And each time we're getting closer and closer to a general election. We are now only talking a year away, and we had last summer. I remember coming on here last summer and talking to you two about the fact that the government were talking about small boats and they're going to crack it. Rishi Sunak saying he's going to crack it. We're getting closer to an election, and the danger is we hit an election and voters say, hold on, you've not sorted this yet. Why should I vote for you? You don't seem to be able to do anything about this.
You started by saying one of the other issues that our viewers and listeners are talking about, thinking about, clicking on are Meghan Markle's stories. What is the Meghan Markle story of interest today?
The big thing today is all about Princess Lilibet, who got christened in California last week. And what emerged yesterday is that yesterday she was referred to as Princess Lilibet for the first time. And why that's significant is because there have been lots of talk about had the two kids of the Sussexes been snubbed from these titles, and had they been not allowed to have them because of the royal vows, and there's even been talk about was it racist that they weren't being used their titles. Actually, it was all due to the line of succession, and once the Queen passed away and they moved up the line of succession, they have now been given those titles. But it's quite a significant moment, and you could say it's almost an olive branch out to Meghan and Harry in California from the royal family.
So they had to be given permission to do this as opposed to them deciding to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all comes down to you can only have so many princes and princesses, and this was a rule put in place to stop there being great big sprawls of just lots of people attached to the royal family. And once the Queen passed away, that did mean that, therefore, everyone moved up in the line of succession, and it meant that those two moved up as well, and therefore the palace gave permission that they could now start to use them in formal settings. They could refer to them as Prince and Princess.
Princess Anne set the bar on this when she didn't hand titles of Prince and Princess to her son and daughter. And the Daily Mail are asking today, they thought that Harry and Meghan wanted nothing to do with the, I quote, rotten scoundrel Windsors. But
yes,
they're very happy to take these titles.
And this is exactly why I think people really care about it online. It's fascinating the way that this story keeps developing. We think that we've worked out exactly what Harry and Meghan want, and then it seems to change just a week later. I think that's what people can't keep up with, and that's why they love to read about it.
Well,
Never a dull day in royal watching, is there?
No. But it keeps them, I suppose, if the children are royals, or prince and princess or whatever, that it keeps them in the news and it keeps everything they do relevant, and it's another cash cow.
Well, I would just say Princess Lilibet does have a ring to it. It sounds very sweet.
Yeah, because it's been there before.
Princess Lilibet.
It's been there before.
Very sweet.
It's a rip-off. It's a copy.
Very sweet. Well, all the royal names are rip-offs. They only use... They've got a small pool. Charlotte, Victoria, Elizabeth. They all go round in circles. George, Louis, Arthur, you name it, William, Harry,
point taken.
Got it? I could carry
Dan, thank you very much indeed. Dan Flavey, they're telling you what you are interested in, what you are searching for on the GB News website. Head of Digital News, Dan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. The time's 6:13. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
A man's been arrested on suspicion of malicious communications and perverting the course of justice in the Nicola Bulley investigation. It relates to footage shot inside a police cordon the day her body was found in the River Wire. Lancashire Police said the clip was then posted online.
Boris Johnson reportedly warned Dominic Raab privately about his conduct during his leadership. It's understood the ex-Tory leader has given evidence to the independent lawyer looking into formal complaints made against Raab.
The Alzheimer's Society says the family of US movie star Bruce Willis, revealing that he had dementia, has driven thousands more people to its website. The charity has said it saw 12,000% more visitors in February.
Now, have you ever been caught out by fake reviews online? We're going to be talking about how you can separate fact from fiction. I've been onto, what's the website? What's the website, Charlie, in my ear? Tell me that you check restaurants. TripAdvisor. I've been onto TripAdvisor and people have been raving about places and I've thought, what are they on about? It's awful. So have you ever been caught out? Well, we're talking about that. But first of all, are you prepared for blizzard conditions? Let's get the latest on the forecast with Aidan McGibbon.
Hello, a very good morning to you. We're going to see further wintry weather today and into tomorrow. It's staying cold in the north. There'll be further snow across central parts of the UK, but actually in the south, we're in the mild air again with rain more likely than snow across southern parts of England and South Wales. And it is a band of rain that's moving in from the southwest, which will bump into the cold air and through the rest of Thursday lead to some significant snowfall across parts of North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and then eventually parts of Northern Ireland as well. Scotland stays largely dry and bright, some snow flurries into the far north, rain showers into southern England and South Wales with a gusty wind here and much milder than it has been. But the risk area for that snow is where the mild air bumps into the cold air. Temperatures at sea level around 2 degrees, but over any hills below freezing. And so I think that for North Wales, North Midlands into Northern England, Northern Ireland, we'll see rain or sleet at the very lowest levels, but above 100 metres, the risk of significant snow and significant disruption, especially for the North Pennines into the Peak District area. Above 100 metres, 10 to 20 centimetres of snow building up. That includes the likes of Leeds, Wakefield, Sheffield, Bradford. And above slightly higher elevations, the risk of up to 40 centimetres of snowfall, along with a strong wind with blizzards and drifting of the snow. That's why there's an amber warning, because that would cause significant disruption. The spells of rain, sleet and snow push south again on Friday morning, eventually petering out, and by the afternoon many places are drier and brighter, some decent sunny spells emerging once again away from the far south and far north. Further snow showers into Scotland on Friday and throughout the weekend, but on Saturday for many it starts off dry, albeit cold, and we'll see another band of rain move in from the Atlantic, turning to snow once again in places, but particularly over northern hills.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back at 6:19. Just a reminder, we do want to hear how you're getting on in the snow. This talk of blizzard conditions, very concerning. School closures, any impacts, local roads closed or indeed airports, let us know and we will try and bring everybody at the very latest lines on that. And still to come on today's programme.
We'll bring you the latest on the David versus Goliath battle underway in Yorkshire as locals fight to oppose the building of a new Amazon warehouse next to their homes.
That's such a nightmare, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they are massive, but they look very neat and tidy.
Oh, if you imagine you're living next to a lovely rural field and suddenly you have this 24-hour operation with lorries thundering in, bright lights all the time.
They've got to be built somewhere,
They
Isabel.
do, but there's got to be sites away from villages. It's got to be away from homes.
Well,
I could just imagine you buy a lovely house overlooking fields and then this great big monstrosity appears. Stick them next to motorways by all means.
They are. If you go up the M1, there's quite a lot of Amazon warehouses.
On the motorway, but Pretty Village, this is an abomination.
Okay.
Imagine.
Okay. Not in my backyard, Webster.
know.
There. Yeah, right, 7:20.
Well, we'll stick it next to your house, see how you feel about it.
As the government considers ending free prescriptions for the over 60s, we'll debate whether benefits for baby boomers should be a thing of the past. In other words, this is ageist again. If you're over 60, now I'm over 60, but I'm not aware of the benefits.
What do you mean it's ageist? What's ageist about this?
Well,
that you're getting free prescriptions?
Well, I'm not aware that I can get free prescriptions, but if that is the case, well, I think I've paid my dues and I've earned the right to get
What
free
about all
prescriptions.
these kids in their 30s who can't even afford their rent these days? It's tough out there for youngsters.
Yeah, and it's usually families who are over 60 who are subsidising them. It's tough for everybody, I think. But at what stage do you earn benefits? Have you the right to a benefit from the state? It probably affects you or shouldn't affect you, but believe me, if you're over 60, they are coming to get you. They're going to cut off all your benefits, everything to do, GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBNews if you're still allowed to, if you're over 60.
OK, we've all heard about text message scams designed to con us out of cash, but now the reviews you read online could be scams too.
Well, I never.
Scams everywhere.
What, as if, well, why do people believe what sort of reviews would you believe online? Restaurant?
Yes, you go on to anything, you think, oh, I'm going to try this hair salon, and you look at their ratings on Google, or you go to download an app and you look at how many stars they have, and the stars on the app have been given based on the reviews. You can
But if I ran the hairdressers and I was Mr. Eamonn's salon, I would be going off under a different name and writing my reviews.
Of course you would.
I love Mr. Eamon's fingers through my hair. It's lovely. The things, the magic
then the real
this man
reviews
can work.
would be like, Eamon's dreadful.
Well, which magazine and the whole business that they do have revealed that 1 in 6 reviews on Apple and Google app stores could actually be made up.
Well, let's speak to consumer expert Harry Wallop, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Harry. Look, this is a dilemma because we do genuinely want people's reviews, but if it's been gamed, they're meaningless.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So this is some research done by Which, as Eamonn says, and it's not hair salon owners who are trying to just get their friends and family to boost them up the ratings. These are industrial review farms, where companies can pay for literally thousands of reviews to be written, favourable reviews to be written. So they get bumped up the rankings, they get 5 stars, and you end up downloading this particular app, and it's rubbish, or it's certainly not as good as a far better app that didn't gain the system and didn't pay for fake reviews. So that's the real issue, that people are being influenced by all this fakery out there online. And there is a figure that the average household spends £900 a year on goods after they have been influenced by fake reviews. Because when you're buying something online, that's usually all you have to go on.
Yeah, I think for a holiday destination, for me, if you were going to a resort or whatever, you would be looking as to what people's previous experiences had been, Harry. And you're right, that is fakery, and that could be, the ruination of 2 weeks of your life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this piece of research by which the consumer organisation is specifically just about apps that you download on your phone. Obviously, with travel companies and other stuff on Amazon, that is still very much an issue, and the government has promised that these fake reviews will be cracked down on. That companies that host fake reviews will become legally liable under a new digital and consumer bill that's yet to actually get through Parliament. But that's the idea, that you could be fined heavily, and a company like Google or Apple or be it Facebook or indeed Amazon can't just wash their hands of it and say, oh, nothing to do with us. Someone else wrote the fake review. Well, you're hosting them, so you actually will be liable under this new law.
I haven't got time to read them all, but just a little snippet of what the app stores have told us. Apple said submitting fraudulent reviews is a violation of its license agreement, and developers who attempt to cheat the system may have their apps reviewed. Google, they also said regarding ads for review brokers, which pay money to Google to appear there, they've evaluated them and taken appropriate action where it's been abused, and so on and so forth. Meta saying fraudulent and deceptive activity is not allowed on our platform.
Harry,
they are aware of the problem.
So that, yeah, they're aware of the problem, and if that is the problem, what is the solution, Harry?
Well, the solution is for consumers to be savvy, is to basically make these fake reviews irrelevant. And the way of being savvy is to, first of all, be very suspicious of any app or indeed service that has just nothing but 5-star reviews, and crucially, short 5-star reviews. Most of these fake review farms who pump out all these fake reviews, they're often just literally a few words long. Awesome product. Fantastic! Exclamation mark. Well, that's not enough if you're going to leave a 5-star review. Most people have quite a good radar for when a real human has written something gushing, and it's descriptive. It actually does talk about the particular service. It's not just some meaningless words that they've popped up there. So be suspicious of 5-star reviews, short 5-star reviews, and also a glut of 5-star reviews in a very short space of time, because that's, again, what these review farms kind of do. They kind of pump out 100 in the space of a couple of days. And that's not what normally happens to something like Eamonn's hair salon.
Yes. It would be some salon, Harry, I can tell you. But would it, if you wanted to make that seem more realistic, then what you're saying is that out of, 100 reviews, you may pepper 3 or 4 in there that say, not what I was expecting, not the full experience, not for me, whatever. You get a few of those in there then.
Well, I think when you as a consumer are trying to find out whether this is a genuinely great product or service or a hair salon, just be a bit discerning. Go down to the 4-star reviews and even the 3 stars and see what people are saying. Because if you have paid money for fake good reviews, you're not going to pay for a 3 or 4-star review as a general rule, unless you're incredibly sophisticated. So just sort the reviews out. And then, of course, look elsewhere. If it is possible to look elsewhere to see what people are saying. And when it's a holiday, that is quite easy. Or if it's a well-known product you're buying from an online retailer, there's usually other ways of checking out reviews. It's very difficult when it comes to apps because they are just, by definition, 100% digital. So it's the only way really of telling.
Well, Harry Wallop, you are the savviest of the savvy. Thank you very much for those wise words. We appreciate it. I shall be doing that. I shall be scrolling down, looking out for the 4th and 3rd star reviews from now
Cheers,
on.
Harry. Thanks very much. Thank you. Do you think people leave reviews for our little humble breakfast programme?
Well, they certainly leave nice ones on Instagram. Message us with nice comments all the time, don't they? I feel like that's a bit of feedback. Maybe we shouldn't ask invite them.
Maybe we shouldn't invite them.
I'm not.
But I mean, let's face it. What have you got? What's the opposition? BBC.
Boring.
ITV. Is there any other breakfast stations? Sky do a bit of something, don't they? What else happens? What else?
Just us. It's the only place to be.
Just us. The thing is, you just got to get the word out there, and you just got to say, Eamonn and Isabel, they're not very good, but they're cheap. Anyway, coming up to 6:30.
Speak for yourself.
6:30. And what we're going to do is update you on the ongoing Gary Lineker Twitter drama.
Gosh, he's not cheap.
Well, no, but you see, I think that's why people...
There's a bit of jealousy.
There's a jealousy in that.
Well, we'll talk about that.
So he gets £1.35 million a year just from the BBC. But, does that make him a bad person? Freddie Gray and Stephanie Tetchy will tell you after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, The People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
31 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, which means it is 29 minutes before the hour of 7.
You're in one of those moods today, aren't you?
I'm just saying, if it's 31 past,
just showing off your mental
29.
arithmetic. It's 32 minutes past 6. Let's take a look at the front pages.
So
now.
which means what?
28 minutes to 7.
Well, you passed that. You passed that. Well done.
Here's the Express. It leads with Rishi Sunak's attempt to get a deal with the French president and to stop the channel crossings.
The Mail asks, is Lineker about to get the boot from the BBC after his impartiality is called into question? I just want to ask you guys today, listening and watching, does it matter what a football presenter thinks about other things? If he was presenting news, maybe, but he presents football. Is that going to stop me watching Match of the Day? Well, from my point of view, no. Your point of view, Isabel?
I think it's a difficult one for the Director General. They're at pains to try and prove that the BBC is impartial, so it's a headache for them. But I don't think his views are any huge surprise to anyone. He's got Ukrainians living with him. He's spoken repeatedly in the past about it. But I can see that this is a problem for the BBC. OK.
We're going to look at the Times. Weight loss drugs could help to trim the benefits bill as the Treasury is urged to fund treatment for up to 12 million people with this diabetic drug, which will help a lot of people lose about 12% of their body weight.
And the Metro is featuring Meghan and Harry's little girl, Princess Lilibet, who was christened with an official title. And they also have a photograph of the Princess of Wales in army fatigues, who they've dubbed our battle princess.
Well, let's talk about that first of all. And we've got Stephanie Tecci and we have got Freddie Gray here to review the papers today. Steph, so the Metro, Princess of Wales visits the Irish Guards training exercise in Salisbury. She's our battle princess.
I'm loving this gritty Kate, because I think she's not just a pretty face, and it's been quite good that she's actually been thrown into the thick of it. So when she went there yesterday, this is her first official visit to the battalion. I hope I got that right. You know, since she was made the colonel, and she learnt how to treat a wounded soldier, and it was quite freezing cold yesterday. So she was saying it was the first time she's ever done anything like this, and I think it's quite interesting to be putting a princess into the thick of it and actually showing her real skills.
Isabel is a massive, but you're very impressed by her style and
to be her.
She's got star quality, hasn't she?
Do you know, I just think it's fun to see her getting stuck in, as you say, Steph, rather than... She's done such amazing stuff with Early Years, but we've kind of seen it all before.
Yeah.
Great to see her rolling her sleeves up and, you know...
I think the Palace has been watching GB News because I know you've been saying quite a lot, Isabel, that too many pictures of her with children.
Yeah.
And so now they've sent her out to war.
Thank you for noticing. It's my fault. Sorry, Kate. She's loving this. She's been deployed out in the snow.
Yeah, because I think with the royals and women, there is that focus always on what they're wearing and just more kind of feminine, stereotypical roles. So I think it's quite good and inspiring for young women to see things like this.
What I would say, Stephanie, is somewhere in a firm like the royals, they need a star. They need star quality.
They do. I agree.
And she definitely has star quality. It was often put that Princess Diana had the star effect and Prince Charles had not, or compared to him, she had not. It could be said the same for Kate and Wills.
Yeah, well, more than ever, the royals do need a star right now because they've had so much controversy over the past year. And what I've loved about Kate is she's managed to kind of keep calm, carry on and get on with the job at hand. And that's why I'm always disappointed how things turned out with Meghan and Harry, because Meghan also would have had a chance to be a part of this. But now it's all about our battle princess, and rightly so.
I would say sales of camouflage fatigues will fly off the shelves this weekend.
Absolutely.
Do you own some camouflage, Eamonn?
I don't,
I actually have a camo jacket like that. I do the school running most days.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
If you put a hat on, people wouldn't know if it was her or you. That's the thing.
I live at home. Freddie, let's turn to the eye. Sunak's small boats bill risks Brexit peace with Europe. All the usual suspects on social media yesterday. I saw Guy Verhofstadt, those old regulars, appearing on Twitter yesterday, condemning Sunak.
Well, there was this strangely friendly mood music between Britain and Europe last week over Northern Ireland and the protocol and the new bill. And then this is the flip side of that, because the Sunak's small boats bill risks Brexit peace with Europe. The idea is that Europe said, we've played nice about Northern Ireland. If you breach international treaties and so on, things could get pretty nasty, and includes this odd, very vague threat that it could affect Europe's efforts to repel Vladimir Putin. I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah, how have they made that link?
Well, I think the idea would be there's an international effort together, and if Britain becomes a pariah, then it will affect Europe's bid to push back Putin. I think that's nonsense. But nevertheless, it's interesting that you hear it. I would also like to say, I think this is bad English on the front page of the article.
Sunak's small boats bill risks Brexit peace with Europe.
Because that suggests that it could make the peace happen. Sorry, pedantic of me.
Yes.
But I think on the front page they should probably get it right. Anyway, this is an ongoing, slightly boring row, but it is going to carry on, and it just shows the extent of resistance at the highest levels of Europe to any serious attempt from the British government to try and grapple with this problem.
OK. Look, let's talk about the Gary Lineker thing. He's over so many of the front pages. If it's not him, it's Princess Catherine on the front pages. So it's an impartiality storm. Gary Lineker coming out and saying, I'm not going to be silenced.
Yeah, and I don't think he should be silenced. You know, he obviously is the Match of the Day host, and I think, you know, the BBC will have a very hard time trying to replace Gary Lineker. And I think, you know, over the past few years, there's been always this question with the BBC trying to stifle their stars and limit their stars and what they can tweet. Gary Lineker is a sports presenter. I personally feel like he should be allowed to have his views and to express them about the migrant situation. We have the right who are always giving their views. So why can't Gary Lineker give his views? And why should he be, you know, potentially lose his job, his $1.35 million a year job, just for voicing his views?
I think a lot of the opposition to him is over the price tag you've just quoted there, the fact that that's from public money. And you think we should be divorcing the two, the fee that he's paid and his right to have a view?
That's a question. Gary Lineker cannot stop how much he's being paid. Obviously, the BBC think he's worth that price tag, and sports is a very big industry, and you need someone who's charismatic and knowledgeable like Lineker to be hosting that show. So what he's being paid and his views as a human being, that should be two separate things. I don't think no one should be stifled on their freedom of speech. As an ex-BBC person myself, though, I do know impartiality is one of the things that they drum into us, and I think now as an organisation they just need to have a revamp and be clear to their stars, this is what we expect you to do, and if the stars don't like it, then they should just quit.
Freddie, what do you think?
I think I don't really care about the free speech side of this. I don't think this is some great free speech debate. I think Lineker's biggest problem is that he's disliked by a lot of people because he is quite dislikable, and if anyone follows him on Twitter, he's quite mean. He's quite mean-spirited. He's very showy-offy about his opinions. And he just doesn't come across like a very nice guy. And I also think, as a football presenter...
Gary, not nice!
As a football presenter, I'm going to get in trouble. I don't think he's much good. I think that his Qatar speech, which the BBC signed off on, I thought that was a ridiculous introduction to the World Cup. I mean, if you're going to accept that you're covering a World Cup in Qatar and you're actually going to go along with it, if you feel that strongly about it, don't do the World Cup.
Yeah, but Freddie...
but don't then lecture everyone about human rights in Qatar when you didn't in Russia when you covered the World Cup there.
Well, I think it's the broadcasting organisations. I like Gary very much. I think he is very good at what he does. And I think he's been there, he's got the T-shirt for it. But I think it's like companies like ITV who are saying, oh, this is terrible, we shouldn't be doing this World Cup and we're going to show LGBTQ rights and whatever. But we're happy to take all the ads from Coca-Cola, Budweiser, and McDonald's and everything. And I think... put your money where your mouth is, companies. I mean, I think all the companies, the BBC had the ability to say, do you know what, we're not showing this. ITV had the right to say, we're not showing this. But they both said, no, I think we'll take the money or we'll
Freddie,
the coverage.
You say he's not very liked or likeable. I mean, he tweeted yesterday, didn't he, saying, I've never known so much love and support in my life than I'm getting this morning. This was yesterday. England World Cup golds aside, possibly, I will continue to speak up for poor souls that have no voice.
There are definitely people that like Gary Lineker, and he has supporters. He also has a lot of people that find him deeply, deeply annoying.
Well,
but I'm just bitter. I'm bitter.
I think the people who probably legitimately find him the most annoying are those people who used to work in the BBC or currently work in the BBC as news reporters who have to follow the strict broadcast rules and wouldn't be permitted to get away with this kind of thing.
But he's not. What's he getting away with? I mean,
expressing opinions.
They are news reporters. There is a difference. Why are you a bitter man?
Because he blocked me on Twitter.
And why did he block you on Twitter?
He's very eager with the block button on Twitter. And I got into a row with him. I think he suggested one of our pieces was racist, but it wasn't. And I got into a row with him. And, Twitter rows are silly because you get into them and then you think, what am I doing? And then it was quite exciting because obviously Gary Lineker's a very famous, important person and I'm not. And I got sort of carried away. And I didn't say anything too bad, but he hit the block. He hit the block button. So that's probably why I've got this animus.
Claim to fame, Freddie.
Yeah.
But
well, if it doesn't work out for Gary in the BBC, I think potentially he has a career waiting for him in politics. I'm so team Gary at the moment.
You see, it's interesting because Gary Neville has a career waiting for him in politics.
I don't know about that.
Rachel Johnson and Gary Lineker were going to cook up a political party, an anti-Brexit political party at one point called Centre Forward.
But to be fair, I mean, you say he could have a future in politics. The Labour Party were distancing themselves from his comments. Vivek and Keir Starmer both saying yesterday that they thought his references to Germany were completely inappropriate.
Well, I'd love Gary Lineker to go into politics. He would be destroyed.
Well, as he said, he wants to speak for the poor souls who have no voice. And sometimes I feel like MPs miss that and they're not speaking or reading the room for the general public. And maybe that's where Gary Lineker can fill in.
OK. Now, talking about reading the room, a lot of people won't like this, but if you're in business, you will realise it is hard to get staff. It's hard to get staff for lots of reasons. Most of you want to work at home. Or lots of people just don't want to do hard graft. And, Freddie, this is the Financial Times. Drive to increase overseas worker numbers to begin with construction. So we realise that we needed lots and lots of people pre-Brexit to do lots of jobs that required lots of skill or jobs that people just didn't want to do. Where are we at with this?
Well, there are major problems in the labour market, and the government, while it's very keen to get as many headlines as possible for stopping illegal immigration, for stopping the boats, and it does actually want to legitimately stop the boats, I don't want to sound too cynical, a bigger part of that is its labour drive to increase skilled and including what's deemed sort of lower skilled labour. So there is a massive drive to cover a 1.2 million job shortage in construction in the labour sector, and that, it is hoped, will help keep inflation under control. Because one of the biggest problems with inflation, and obviously it's good that people are paid more, but one of the biggest drivers of inflation is rising salaries and the rising cost of everything. So this is a very, very important story, even though it is quite dull, again.
You made it very entertaining.
I did my best. Let's go back to Gary Lineker.
They're trying to make out the reason we don't have enough houses in this country is that we don't have enough skilled labour from abroad. Another excuse, you know, as to why we've got such a housing shortage.
What, you mean we should be building more houses anyway?
Well, it says if we are to increase housing supply, it is essential we have access to skilled labour from abroad.
Well, I think it probably is, actually, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, we do have there is a shortage. I think whether the government has allowed enough construction anyway is a good point.
Yeah. Look, what's your views on this, folks? Let us know. Get in touch. What way do we get in touch?
GBNews.uk or tweet us at GBNews. Let's liven things up, Steph. Potty mouth parrot has been causing chaos in a boozer, says the Daily Star.
Yes, so it's an African grey Louis, who is 5 years old, and he can be found at the Nail Markers Arms in Sheffield. And apparently he's been banned from watching TV after learning swear words from action movies. And his owner said it's quite embarrassing that he's had to lock him up in a cage and put a warning. So hopefully he's hoping by speaking to pub goers, his mouth will be a bit more clean. I'm actually afraid of parrots. They scare me. Just the fact that they can talk to you and they just got this stare, they frighten the living daylight out of me.
That's a very good point.
I don't understand.
As well.
They're just very awkward creatures. Like, why can parrots speak? I've never actually...
Clever.
Freddie'll know.
Yeah.
I don't actually know.
Yeah.
You caught me out. There is some evolutionary reasons to why they can do it. It's an imitating a cool thing. Your viewers will know, but I don't quite know exactly. I'm pro-parrot.
Yeah.
Right? Pro-parrot.
Yeah.
I like a parrot.
Yeah.
I wish I had a parrot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's quite cruel. You've got quite a big bird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And... and it's in a cage.
Yeah.
It's kept, and it can speak.
Yes.
Well, what I'm trying
No
to
wonder
say
he's...
does that not seem cruel?
Yeah.
You get a big bird in your sitting room in top of the TV, and it sits there and it poos. But I just said, but it doesn't get out. It doesn't fly.
I have a thing about caged animals generally. I don't want a bunny.
I agree with
I don't want an animal that's kept in a cage.
Goldfish.
Although I love bunnies, but not in a
cage.
Well, they need to be in their bowls, but no wonder this parrot's potty mouth, like just being caged up. He's probably frustrated.
Do we know his name?
I think it's Louis. He's an African gay, yeah.
He's quite nice for a parrot. He's grey.
But to be honest, I think this guy could be onto a moneymaker, because now I think people would want to come up to visit Louis and see what swear words he has to say for the day.
I went up to a parrot in a botanical gardens somewhere, I can't remember where, and I was just chatting to my mum at the time, and the parrot started imitating me, and then when it imitated me, I shrieked. I went, "Oh!" And then it did the shriek back at me, and I was just like, "Stop it! This is like an echo." It was awful, and then it was going, "Stop it! This is like an echo," and I was like, "More!"
Did you not think it was one of those TV programmes where they set things up, and it might have been Ant and Dec behind making the voices, making
just
the noises?
mocking me, and it was just
probably
horrible.
Ant and Dec. Probably was with that. I went up to a walrus in Dublin Zoo when I was 18. It was massive, Freddie, absolutely massive. And there was a fence or bars between it and me, and I looked at it like this, and it went, "Oh!" and it spat all over me. It absolutely put me off walruses for life.
Yeah.
And they had two massive big
teeth.
teeth. Is that the word for teeth?
I don't know.
Tentacles or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it had all those.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
Freddie
you.
and Stephanie will be back in 45 minutes' time. The time is now exactly
How many minutes to 7?
11 minutes to 7.
Well done. Is it? I think it's actually 9 minutes to 7. Oh, no,
it's
11.
49.
Yes, I never could do maths. Right.
50,
let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
And if you want the right time, ask me. Here's the weather forecast. Severe snowstorms and travel disruption are forecast around Britain today. The Met Office has issued an amber warning. That means strong winds bringing blizzard conditions and up to 40 centimetres of snow in parts of the country. If you don't do decimals, anybody know what 40 centimetres is?
In what?
Inches.
I don't know, 11 inches, something like that?
That's a lot. It's a lot. Anyway.
15, there you go. 3 people have been arrested in connection with the murder now of Ellie Edwards outside a pub in Wallasey last Christmas. 20-year-old Thomas Waring has also been charged with possessing a prohibited weapon and assisting an offender. And a 23-year-old man and woman have been arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder.
The King is to learn about efforts to combat avian flu during a visit to the Animal and Plant Health Agency, which exists in Surrey. 330 cases of avian flu have been confirmed since 2021 in Britain, and more than 7 million birds have been culled.
Well, now, there is a battle rumbling on in Cleckheaton in West Yorkshire between a community group and the council over plans to build an Amazon warehouse next to residential properties. Now, before everybody starts shouting NIMBYism, you have to have some sympathy when you've got a lovely rural home and suddenly a huge Amazon depot. I mean, it's so dismissive to call people NIMBYs, but I do think there's a legitimate reason to be upset about something like that. It would affect the value of your home, the quality of your life. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I've already been accused of being a NIMBY, that's all.
The campaign is called Save Our Spen, and they've been campaigning since June 2021 to have crowd-funded £17,000 in the fight to oppose this site. They say it will generate added pollution and traffic. Anna Riley with the full story.
These Cleckheaton residents formed the Save Our Spen campaign group 21 months ago. Ever since, they've battled Kirklees Council against granting a 24-hour operational Amazon warehouse to be built right next to their homes. This is the site now. It's land next to the busy M62 motorway and is used for growing crops. But if the proposal goes ahead, it will transform into a building more than 25 metres high, with lorries attending day and night, but with no buffer zone to nearby properties. Residents are determined not to let this happen due to the increase in light, noise, air and traffic pollution they say it will bring.
I'm afraid to say that it's proposed a building that's going to be 300 metres in that direction, so a third of a kilometre, and 200 metres in that direction, with a 24-hour operation, the ability to have 85 HGVs loading and unloading continually, and 191 parking bays. Basically a building for Amazon. And right next to a residential area, this is the boundary of my house, and I will be living straight across from this.
The group are not opposed to the land being used to provide employment, but want the size of the Amazon warehouse to be scaled back.
Anyone wanting to, who's built a house, have a family here, is not going to be too happy with having something of this nature next to their property. There's no two ways about it. I'm a little bit more pragmatic about it. I am happy to have some form of development here, but let's not, let's balance it. Let's try and make it fair to the residents and fair to the, the employment side. We do need jobs, there's no two ways about it. But what we don't need is something that is so vastly outside what was originally intended that would actually, upset people that are nearby.
There's also concerns about the lasting legacy the development will have on the area.
The impact on the area will be felt for miles around and for a long time to come. And I think that is probably the major concern for us. We're probably being labelled as NIMBYs, and we're saying we're absolutely not NIMBYs. We're saying we're not against development, but this development belongs on a trading estate, on an industrial estate, certainly not in a residential setting.
In response to the campaign, the council said the planning application has been subject to rigorous public consultation and will be presented to the planning committee for a decision. Issues raised by the public will be reported to the committee and they will listen to all the evidence presented to them before reaching the decision. Amazon declined to comment and a decision is set to be made by the council this month. Anna Riley, GB News, Scholes.
It's a difficult dilemma.
Yeah, that is a difficult dilemma.
We all use Amazon, or a lot of people do.
Spen Valley and
River.
Forest and everything that goes with it. But, you know, it's jobs and it is the future and an automated warehouse. But if it's happened to you or if it's something that you have an opinion on, please do get in touch and let us know about it. And we'll accumulate your views from the first hour of the programme and we'll play those out the second hour.
Yes, and as we've been saying all morning this morning, weather is the big story for us. We really want to hear your weather stories. Are you changing your plans? Are you staying at home, working from home? Are your kids having snow days? Let us know what's happening where you are and we'll try and get pictures on air as well. You can do that GB News at gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at GB News.
But right now, let's get the update. Here's the way it's going to look for the rest of the day. Ed McGivern.
Hello, a very good morning to you. We're going to see further wintry weather today and into tomorrow. It's staying cold in the north. There'll be further snow across central parts of the UK, but actually in the south, we're in the mild air again with rain more likely than snow across southern parts of England and South Wales. And it is a band of rain that's moving in from the southwest, which will bump into the cold air and through the rest of Thursday lead to some significant snowfall across parts of North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and then eventually parts of Northern Ireland as well. Scotland stays largely dry and bright, some snow flurries into the far north, rain showers into southern England and South Wales with a gusty wind here and much milder than it has been. But the risk area for that snow is where the mild air bumps into the cold air. Temperatures at sea level around 2 degrees, but over any hills below freezing. And so I think that for North Wales, North Midlands into Northern England, Northern Ireland, we'll see rain or sleet at the very lowest levels, but above 100 metres, the risk of significant snow and significant disruption, especially for the North Pennines into the Peak District area. Above 100 metres, 10 to 20 centimetres of snow building up. That includes the likes of Leeds, Wakefield, Sheffield, Bradford. And above slightly higher elevations, the risk of up to 40 centimetres of snowfall, along with a strong wind with blizzards and drifting of the snow. That's why there's an amber warning, because that would cause significant disruption. The spells of rain, sleet and snow push south again on Friday morning, eventually petering out, and by the afternoon many places are drier and brighter, some decent sunny spells emerging once again away from the far south and far north. Further snow showers into Scotland on Friday and throughout the weekend, but on Saturday for many it starts off dry, albeit cold, and we'll see another band of rain move in from the Atlantic, turning to snow once again in places, but particularly over northern hills.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Met Office issues a risk-to-life warning as the country braces for 40 centimetres of snow.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It's exactly 7 o'clock on this Thursday, the 9th of March. Thank you for your company. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The country is facing major disruption today as the Met Office warns of blizzard conditions, travel delays, road and rail closures, power cuts and a potential risk to life, as well as to property, are expected as amber warnings come into effect.
France and Britain are working on a deal to stop small boats crossing the Channel ahead of a meeting between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron. The summit follows the PM's announcement of a new hardline approach on illegal migration.
Gary Lineker has said he'll continue to speak up after he was criticised for controversial tweets comparing the government's migrant policy to that of Germany in the 1930s.
And the Princess of Wales, dressed in army camouflage. Yesterday, she joined Irish Guards in the snow for battlefield injury training. The exercise on Salisbury Plain is her first duty with the Guards since becoming colonel last year.
And we want to hear from you. We've been getting lots of views in already. Keep them coming thick and fast. You can do that on email, gbnews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. And don't forget, let us know not only where you're watching and listening from, but also what the weather's up to where you are.
OK, here's our top story. Blizzard conditions expected from 3 p.m. today, causing major disruption, especially north of Stoke, as the Arctic snap continues to grip the country.
Yes, the Met Office has issued an amber warning from 3 p.m, with 40 centimetres of snow predicted in parts of the UK.
Now, if you're driving, you've been warned to avoid non-essential travel. Road closures could leave people stranded on motorways. The disruption could also affect power lines and the mobile phone network.
Well, let's check in now with the weather journalist Nathan Rao. Good morning to you, Nathan. Look, we were talking about this yesterday. It's not getting any better. Good morning. If anything, it's about to get a lot worse.
It is. There is a new Met Office warning out today that we didn't speak about yesterday. That was released yesterday, and that is an amber warning. If you remember, Eamonn, we were talking about yellow, amber and red. And this is, as your forecaster was just saying, for the potential of up to 15 inches of snow in parts. And this is going to move away from the south today, but this is now moving north of the country for tomorrow, the rest of the day and tomorrow until about midday. So we are expecting the cold now to get much worse with blizzard conditions, and it is time to really start taking notice of some dangerous weather conditions coming up.
OK, will the whole country be affected or parts?
This is going to be mainly for the north. What is happening is the UK is going to turn into a battleground with this cold air and the mild air coming in from the southwest. Now, that is going to move the cold away from the southern part of the country today. So the south is pretty much done with it after 7 o'clock this morning, according to the Met Office warnings. Then it's sort of the Midlands upwards right up into northeast, northwest England, which is in this danger zone for snow and ice and cold weather going on today and into tomorrow. And that is where we can get some very, very heavy snowfall, particularly in rural ground, particularly in high ground, before midday tomorrow. So it's going to be a northern thing going forward and into the weekend as well. But it really time to take care because there's some very, very heavy snow on the way.
I was looking at some of the forecasts, the lowest temperatures for Tuesday night, and it was minus 15 in places. Are we expecting those kinds of lows?
Yes, we are. Minus 15.4, I think, in Kimbrace it was. That's according to the Met Office. And yes, these cold temperatures are going to continue. Again, the south is going to turn a bit milder because we've got this mild air coming in. This is the mild air that causes the problem with bumping into the cold air over the UK and causing the snow. But we are going to see temperatures rise in the south. But cold temperatures further north, absolutely going right through the week. There's also a UK Health Security Agency health alert in place, and that is warning about the health dangers of this cold weather going forward, and that is in place until Monday.
Can you give us an insight into logistics, airports, ports, roads, what you're expecting, how bad is it likely to get, should we be prepared for? There was a suggestion that because we're into March, that the utility companies may not be prepared in terms of grit for the roads and things. I'm not sure why that makes a difference, but tell us what you think or what you're hearing.
Yeah, now I'm hearing that there was some disruption with the airports yesterday. In terms of the temperatures and roads, this is a very good point because the grit will stop working efficiently below minus 10. And we cannot, and so it becomes worthless on the roads at about minus 10. And those are the sorts of temperatures we're expecting overnight in the areas that I've just mentioned. So delays on the roads, absolutely possible. I'd say more or less certain in the next 24 hours, certainly in the areas that I mentioned. Possibly further south, we've got the main airports further south are not going to be quite affected by the snow going forward. We're sort of out of that danger zone a bit more now, but the northern airports, yes, expect disruptions, and on the trains as well. Trains, roads, I think there are advisories to, if you're going to travel, take precautions, make sure, as we were speaking about yesterday, if you're going out for long journeys on the roads, take your torches, your battery packs, your hot water, your heated flasks, all that sort of thing, because there is the potential for disruption, and people will be waking up this morning possibly to some very, very heavy snow.
OK, Nathan, thank you very much indeed for all of that advice. Now, France and Britain are working on a deal to stop small boats crossing the Channel ahead of a meeting between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron tomorrow.
Well, the summit follows the PM's announcement of a new hardline approach on illegal migration. Let's get more on this and the other stories that you are following online, because the man who monitors it all is our head of digital news, Dan Falvey. Dan, just want to touch on the weather before we get into the situation about migration. People will always be looking for information to be pre-warned about what to expect.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of... I took a look just before we came on air, and there's a lot of search always around Rishi Sunak being the Prime Minister, and there's a lot of search normally around Meghan Markle as a major royal figure. But interestingly, there is far, far more search today in UK weather, and I think that's because it does affect everyone. Whether you may be for Rishi Sunak, against him, you may agree with Meghan Markle, disagree. Everyone is impacted by weather. Everyone needs to know what's going on. And I think it really shows just how much people are impacted by this.
Absolutely. So, right. It will also impact channel crossings as well, depending on what's happening. So what about Macron and Rishi Sunak meeting tomorrow?
So this meeting is going to take place tomorrow, and this is being seen as a reset for relations between the UK and France. Things obviously took a bit of a sour turn when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister because of Brexit and the negotiations going on there. And then we saw with Liz Truss, she said, Emmanuel Macron, I'm not sure, the jury's out, is he a friend or a foe? So what we're seeing tomorrow is the hope to reset those relations and build things on a better footing, and they're planning to do that by starting with this new agreement on how to deal with small boats crossing the Channel. Yeah, not so much le bromance as a little bit of cash going across to our nearest neighbours. Yeah, and this isn't the first time that a little bit of cash has gone across to our nearest neighbours, and I think Rishi Sunak's going to have some frustrated backbenchers when it comes to selling this at home, because we did a deal with France a few years ago that was to give them more money to help them increase the number of patrols on French beaches to help stop the number of crossings. We did the same last year, we did the same the year before that, and there was a lot of backbenchers saying, oh, hold on a minute, we need to see results that you're actually putting this money to good use before we give you even more money. So I think there's a lot of frustrated Conservative backbenchers about this deal that could come out tomorrow.
What's interesting on this bill that's being proposed yesterday, the objections from Labour aren't so much sort of on compassionate grounds, but actually more on how to stop the boats, which I think says a lot.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I think Rishi Sunak's in danger of falling into a trap with. We can see, and we can see digitally, that this is what our readers really care about. It's the second biggest issue for people in Britain after the cost of living crisis, is dealing with illegal immigration. But, as I say, we've done a number of deals with France before, and we keep seeing the number of small boats crossings going up and up and up. And all the time, we're getting closer to the next general election. As closer we get to the next general election, voters are going to be saying, well, hold on a minute, we trusted you last time to try and stop illegal immigration, and you're not doing it. So I think Labour's playing a canny game by saying, actually, this isn't about compassionate grounds, this is about it's not going to work, because I think that reflects the mood of the country. And the danger for Rishi Sunak is it comes to the next election and people think, well, why not give Labour a go? Because we've tried you, and quite frankly, it's not working.
What are people interested in outside of that in the political sphere?
Outside that, there's a lot of interest still in the leadership debate up in Scotland when it comes to the SNP, because Nicola Sturgeon was such a big player on the UK stage. Exactly what happens now that she's leaving and who she replaces her, people are very interested about what that means for the future of the UK. Does independence look more or less likely? Because Nicola Sturgeon has been that face of independence, and beyond her, I still don't think people actually know who the candidates for place of are. We've now had this contest going on for around 10 days. Ballots open next week for SNP members to actually vote. And I think if you asked anyone who's not an SNP member, who are these candidates, they wouldn't be able to name them.
Dan, our next interview is about the Sussexes and the christening of Princess Lilibet. And so they've adopted this official title that they are calling, or they've decided to call their children Prince and Princess.
Yeah, I won't trade into Cameron's shoes too much, and I'll let him explain the details of this. But I will just say is there's a lot of repeated interest digitally when it comes to what the Sussexes are doing. And I think it's because it's the story that just keeps on giving. Every time that they seem to say goodbye and say, this is it, something else picks up. They left the UK, they wanted their privacy, they left. Then we had the Oprah interview, then we had the Netflix documentary, then Prince Harry's memoir. And then that was kind of them saying, we've aired our piece now, and now we've got still more stories keep coming out, there's more developments. I think that's why people just can't get enough of this.
Well,
Dan Falvey, appreciate it.
Dan,
thank you very much indeed.
Let's bring in the man himself, then, our royal reporter Cameron Walker, to elaborate even further on all of that. It was, as royal watchers yesterday, there was lots of confusion about, and one got the sense maybe that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had surprised even Buckingham Palace with their decision to give their children these titles.
Yes, that's the sense I got. It was, I would say, quite hurried-out guidance saying that websites will be updated in due course, because as it stands, I checked a few minutes ago, on the website, Archie and Lilibet are still listed as Master and Miss. But it is Harry and Meghan's right, and indeed their children's right, to have the titles, their children, to have the titles of Prince and Princess due to this letter's patent, which dates back right from 1917, which states that any grandchild of the monarch on the male line of descendant has the right to be a prince or princess. But this is the first time we have seen it actually used in a formal setting. Now, it's understood that the Sussexes are only going to use it in formal settings, so they're not going to be referred to Princess Lilibet or Prince Archie in everyday speak. But I think for formal situations such as christenings, maybe coronations, I think we will see it used more and more. And some people are making the argument, hold on, that Prince Harry has previously talked about the generational trauma he had as being brought up in the royal family, having the burden of a royal title, and yet he has decided to give it to his children, or at least give them the option of having the title if they so wish. So there's a lot of questions this morning, I think.
Yeah, well, another big question is, there's all the row about have they been invited to the coronation or not. But what they've done is they have invited King Charles and Queen Camilla, Prince William, Princess Kate, all to the christening, which happened on Friday the 3rd of March. And, well, it appears that nobody turned up. So they're now trying to steal the high ground on that they have been snubbed from that point of view.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it? It's this idea with the Sussexes that they try and perhaps control the narrative, because the christening happened on the Friday. We only
in Los
Angeles. We only found out about it today. We know that there are some kind of negotiations going on to do with Frogmore Cottage and will they or won't they attend the coronation. So I think it's hardly surprising that someone close to the Sussexes has briefed several newspapers and journalists saying that the King, Queen Consort and the Prince and Princess of Wales, as you said, Eamonn, were invited, which is ironic, really, because to me, if it is true, it gives this idea that Harry and Meghan are trying to extend an olive branch to their relatives here in the United Kingdom, at the same time where we know Buckingham Palace is kind of giving them a save-the-date invite for the coronation. Not an official invite, they're not going out until probably 3 weeks before, but nonetheless, there seems to be some kind of talks going on between the two camps.
It sort of reminds me of when Archie was born and there was all this clamour for a picture of the baby and the family, the couple very much resisting that. No official pictures from the christening on Friday.
Do we know who the godparents were?
We don't.
But who the godparents were, and you know, it's the same old picture being rehashed, isn't it, of Princess Lilibet from last year? I think it was her birthday or something. But we'd love to see the pictures, and yet they talked. You know, they're everywhere. They're in the documentary. It's not like they're trying to be secretive and private. It's kind of just on their terms.
I think people would, and it is on their terms. It's a great way of describing it. But of course, there's a huge difference between when Archie was born and Lilibet's being christened now. Because when Archie was born, Harry and Meghan were still working members of the royal family. They were still receiving our money, taxpayers' money, because they were working members. So many people thought that the public had the right to see pictures of the newborn baby on the steps at the christening, etc., and know who the godparents are. Now Harry and Meghan are private citizens. Their argument will be that it's our private lives. We don't need to tell you. We don't need to give you running commentary or pictures of their children.
But if the King and Queen had have turned up and William and Kate, there would have been lots of pictures and they would have been quite happy to stand in those by association, one would have thought.
I'm sure, yes. Many people perhaps would make that argument that being part of the royal family, they can capitalise on that by doing Netflix documentary series or writing a tell-all memoir book, as we have seen. So I think the danger, perhaps, for Buckingham Palace and the working members of the royal family is being too closely associated with the Sussexes or having too many private conversations with them. They can't guarantee that in a year, 2 years' time, it's not going to end up on the pages of a best-selling book.
Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales looking very Lara Croft-esque across all of the papers this morning, in army fatigues, out on Salisbury Plain, in the snow. Tell us what she was up to.
Yes, I don't think there are many people who can pull off camouflage quite as well as the Princess of Wales did, yes. So she is the new colonel of the Irish Guards, and this was the first time that she was out and about with them. And instead of just marching along a parade ground in some barracks, she wanted to get down in the nitty-gritty on the Salisbury Plain.
In
the snow. I think it added to the fact it was so cold and snowing. But she was helping them out on exercise, administering first aid to a pretend wounded soldier who'd received a gunshot wound during this training exercise. So she put on a tourniquet, this particular soldier. She learnt about the different weapons the Irish Guards use, and she learnt a bit about anti-explosives and anti-mines and how the war in Ukraine affects all of that. But obviously, she's colonel, and it's part of a household division, which means at some point they will troop their colour in front of her because she is their honorary colonel. And the Irish Guards is one of those battalions which guards royal palaces, which wear those famous bearskin hats, which is so associated with the United Kingdom. So, yes.
Actually, I'm thinking, if I play up this whole part of my grandfather was an Irish Guard, we could get invited.
Lovely.
We could get invited to one of these parades, one of these trooping of the colour things or whatever it is. Could do all that.
We'll ham that up then.
Cameron, I was saying about her that she's got star quality. There's absolutely no doubt. It takes a lot to be able to go and press the flesh and talk to experts in their field, in this case, the military, and then just look the part. I mean, I know how a lot of people agonise about their appearance and whatever, but
she doesn't take a bad picture, does she?
She doesn't. I haven't seen one if she does.
No, she doesn't. She was wearing makeup and she doesn't have military training. However, I don't think that's the point. The point here is she is willing to get stuck in and build a relationship. But I think it is the
point,
Guards.
Cameron. I think it is the point because that star effect that we had with Diana, we're now getting it again. It's not. Meghan thought this would go to her. But it has really gone to the Princess of Wales here. And I think you need that star quality to make the royals relevant.
Exactly, and she is the future queen. She's on the front page of pretty much all the newspapers this morning, and I think it shows the power of the soft power the royal family has, because whatever cause they happen to be championing that particular day, it's going to get lots of coverage. So today it's, Irish Guards, and then tomorrow it could be something.
Which is good news for Dan Falvey, I have to say, because
keep your traffic coming through. But I just wanted to say it reflects well on the future king, on William as well, because there she was last week thrashing him on the Peloton bikes. You know, emasculating him, some might say, but he doesn't seem to be threatened by her star.
No.
Which obviously happened a bit with Diana, didn't it?
And I think they very much see each other as a team, and they can't really work without the other. And I think the fact they work so well as a team reflects in the popularity ratings we see, because the latest YouGov poll shows that William and Catherine are out on top in terms of working royals. They're more popular than the King and Queen Consort themselves, which I think speaks volumes for eventually in 20 years' time or so, when the new reign starts again, because they are future king and queen, and they are popular around the world as well. It's that power of soft diplomacy and diplomatic relations which they do so well at.
They remind me of you and me, so they do.
What, me beating?
Yeah, I am now just in the shade. I used to be somebody.
Oh, stop! No,
now I'm just in your shade.
You mean you're the future king?
I'm just tripping behind you.
Oh, stop it!
I used to be the king of breakfast television.
You are still the king.
No. Look, you've just come along and taken any glory reflected towards me.
Everyone knows that's nonsense.
But sometimes I think I'm presenting with Kate.
Oh.
You look at this.
Her fat older sister. The poor man's version. Anyway,
Cameron, stop nodding. Stop nodding.
Yes. Hold my hands up.
Thank you very much.
I'm younger than her. That's one thing I've got.
But how much?
Like 6 months or something.
6 weeks.
6 months. I'm school year below. School year below. It's important.
Why is it important?
Well, because it's something I've got. I'm holding on to it. Let's move on.
Youth. No, I think it's important that we get into your mind and how you think about things. Age is but a number. One of the things we're going to be talking about is age later on, and how when you're old like you get more
like you, more like
me. Yes, you're right. Apparently, I'm entitled to free bus rides
pass,
and all sorts of things. I must do that, you know.
You know what?
Do you think if I go to football, I can get it cheaper on the train?
You're asking me about football? I don't know. I can tell you about prescriptions.
Prescriptions. I need a lot of those. 7:20 is the time we're going to bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
A man's been arrested on suspicion of malicious communications and perverting the course of justice in the Nicola Bulley investigation. It relates to footage shot inside a police cordon the day her body was found in the River Wire. Lancashire Police said the clip was then posted online.
Boris Johnson reportedly warned Dominic Raab privately about his conduct during his leadership. It's understood the ex-Tory leader has given evidence to the independent lawyer looking into formal complaints made against Raab.
The Alzheimer's Society says the revelation that the film star Bruce Willis has dementia has driven thousands more people to their website. The charity said it saw 12,000% more visitors in February.
Right, thanks very much indeed. You're all very keen to talk about lots of things. Gary Lineker, particular. Dawn says, I find people like Gary Lineker offensive. I don't want to be lectured by a rich ex-footballer who has no idea about health and housing waiting lists. Us decent, hard-working people have to put up with. Well, I think Gary Lineker works hard as well.
Jason says the BBC lets Lineker speak because he's preaching what the BBC thinks. If he'd supported the law, he'd have been in more trouble.
This Amazon warehouse that we're talking about and the locals objecting against it being built. Richard from Coventry says, I think people are quite entitled to object to buildings near them. On migrant workers, Dee says people are concerned about the levels of immigration into the country. How about the government paying the wages to train our own youngsters? Anyone who's tried to find an apprenticeship for teenagers will know it's near impossible. I suppose the problem is they need qualified workers now.
We've also had one in from Roberta this morning from Blackpool. She says, Isabel and Eamonn, I love to wake up and watch you two. You have such a great relationship and always make my day start right. We were talking about fake reviews earlier.
Yes.
So maybe that's been sent in from one of your relations. 5 stars.
That's fake. The fake review. 22 minutes past the hour. Coming up, should discounts and freebies for over 60s come to an end?
We'll be debating that and finding out what you think after this.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go. But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Okay, 26 minutes past the hour.
How many minutes to 8 is that?
Well, there would be 4 minutes to 7:30, then 30, so that'd be 34.
Okay, there you go.
34. You don't know if that's true or not. I could just make up a complete lie. But then in 7:45, how far away is that?
I'm not playing this game. 7:45, is the mullet making a comeback? Eamonn sported one in the past.
Oh,
look at you.
That's like yesterday. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you haven't
me.
aged a bit. But now actors like Paul Mescal and Austin Butler are adopting the style. We ask a celebrity hairstylist how to get the iconic look.
Well, I couldn't get the iconic look again.
Yes, you could.
I couldn't. I haven't got enough hair.
Oh, look at
to make
this
it such-
giant dog.
Yeah. Crufts today.
Oh.
And wait a minute. One was a dog and one is me. Right. So let's go back to Cruft. I'd need. Well, you know, in those days, apparently our pictures have stuck. So you're stuck with that picture of me.
There you go.
But the thing is, I used to need hairdressers or groomers to do my hair in
Dog
those days.
groomers.
Basically. So I don't know what type of dog that is, or
look,
that. But
like
they're
a
very
Dalmatian mixed with a big dog.
But they're,
well, look, it's
they're very
Cruft.
handsome.
Yes, and I love Cruft. It's such good family entertainment. It's kicking off today in Birmingham. 8:45, we'll find out how you can make your dog into a prize winner, and we'll be joined in the studio by some pups of our own.
But I would say to you, adopt, don't shop.
And I'd say,
what?
I don't know, just playing to the gallery. I'm gonna zip it.
Yes, zip it. gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBNews. Send us pictures of your doggies. Okay, we'll talk.
OK, now, the government has announced that it is considering upping the age of free NHS prescriptions to 66.
No.
And many people have been left outraged by this.
Or dead. That's who they'll be. As you find, when you hit 50, you'll start getting prescriptions and things will start, your hearing will start to go, your eyesight starts to go. I know, but then why are they trying to make up the age to 66? Why?
Because look how high the tax burden is already. So they don't have a magic money tree. And if everyone's living to nearly 100, they've got to pay for all of this.
Well, you see, that's why, thank goodness.
You'll be dead before we have to worry about it.
The world is not ruled by wicked, soulless people like you. But anyway, is it fair, I ask you? Is it fair that over 60s are entitled to free TV licences? I didn't know. What am I paying for?
You are a walking disaster. I could scam the life out of you.
Right, I'm getting onto this today. So I can have a free TV licence, I can have free prescriptions.
Free bus pass.
Free bus pass, free trains.
You should probably get some discounts on all sorts of things.
Well, here to talk about this, Dawn Neeson this morning, who believes older generations are being demonised.
May I point out, though, nowhere near 60 herself. Just in case anyone was wondering. No, not yet 60, that's true.
She's 59.
She's not.
I'm 58, you cheeky so-and-so.
Well, anyway, there we go. We're also joined by the co-founder of the Intergenerational Foundation, that's Angus Hampton, who's over the 60 mark. But, Angus, you think that people of our age and our generation have it easy, and you would like to see the distribution of money and I don't know how to describe it. Benefits. Benefits. Should I don't know. So there's the beginning.
Well, this baby boomers have it easy. Essentially, what you think?
The baby boomers are the richest generation ever, and there's also an element of entitlement. We, I suppose, my generation too, we've come to expect things. I mean, the free TV licence, fortunately, has actually changed. That used to be for anyone who was over 75 or someone over 75 in the household, but now it's been limited to only those who are on pension benefit. And that should be the same for many of these other benefits that my generation get.
Is the argument that the cost in actually policing that or authorising that is so much?
That's one argument that has been put, that the cost of doing means testing is too high. The other argument is we need to help people who are genuinely in need. And we are doing that. But the problem is we're including in that all people like me who really don't need these benefits, free public transport and so on. And so we've really got to think that it's not just about the money. It's also about how we look at different generations. What we're doing is we're telling younger people that older people are more important. It's the message we're sending about society.
But they are. I mean, did you not feel? I mean, I sit and feel, yes, there's some of these things I may not need, of course, but I feel I've paid my dues. I feel I've put in the experience. I feel the pressure should come off me now at some stage.
So do you feel that once you get to past state retirement age, you shouldn't pay national insurance?
Yes, I do.
Right. OK,
You've paid.
Well, I've paid it my whole life.
Yeah, but it turns out that what we paid in, your generation, my generation, we're a few days apart in age, that what we paid in wasn't enough to sustain the sort of state that we want.
Well, listen, I can almost hear the chorus of outrage from our viewers and listeners up and down the country. They don't like hearing that baby boomers are entitled and wealthy and shouldn't be entitled to free prescriptions. Dawn, you agree with them?
Look, I think when it comes to an entitled generation, I totally disagree. I think the entitled generation are the younger generations today. I think the number of pensioners in relative poverty in the UK is rising. 1 in 5 pensioners, that's more than 2 million people now, are living in poverty. This demonisation of older generations is appalling. I mean, you know, there's a lot of loneliness. Healthcare is appalling for older people. You know, the UK state pension is one of the worst in Europe. I mean, it's 58% of previous earnings from work. And, you know, more than 2.7 million people, inactive people in this country, not earning, are under 25s. You know, when I was 25, I was out working round the clock. And older people deserve everything they get, I'm sorry. And if you don't want those benefits, don't accept them. You don't have to. So that's fair enough. If you feel like you're comfortable enough without your benefits, don't accept them. Let them go to pensioners that do it. But stop demonising older people.
Well, I think you're wrong about that. I think there are actually a lot of very wealthy older people over 60. I mean, we did a study and we found that there were 3 million people over 60 who are millionaires if you include the value of their
value of their house.
And their pension. Yeah, but it's from a young person's point of view, it's still real wealth. And 3 million is 1 in 4.
Angus, a lot of people are living in, especially in London and the South East, are living in huge houses they can barely afford to heat because of the cost of living crisis.
Absolutely.
And because on paper they are worth a lot of money. That doesn't make them millionaires. That makes them, a lot of them are, as we've just discussed, and these are official government figures, living in poverty.
They need to downsize, sell the house, buy a flat.
Oh, that's really easy just to sell a house at the moment, of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite practical. It's only a question of price. House values are still quite high.
Angus, Dawn's talking about the increasing numbers of pensioners living in poverty. We're also seeing an increasing number of children being brought up in relative poverty, working poor.
Yeah, that's a real problem too. Yes, absolutely. But one of the things is if we're too generous to the baby boomers, we're less able to afford all these things to help those in their 20s and those, I think you're referring to broadly, in their 30s.
I think it is hard for younger people, but again, the onus and the pressure of subsidising younger people goes on parents. And a lot of parents and grandparents are in a situation where they're not enjoying their whatever wealth they have. And also, they've got to think, if they are living longer, how do they pay for their own health care?
Absolutely, yes. So many people want to save for those things and they want to help their children. But, I mean, the message we've sent to young people is that they've got to work very hard, they'll be paid minimum wage, the housing will be very expensive, and on top of that, they'll have... If they've been to university, their student debts will mean they'll have to pay very high tax.
I hate to be controversial, Angus, because I do have a lot of sympathy for young people and what they're going through. But has it not been hard for every generation? I mean, I started working when I was 10 years of age, doing a paper round and then doing a milk round. And, you know, I haven't stopped working since. And I've always done 2-3 jobs in a day or whatever. Here's this woman never stops as well. But maybe it's something in our psyche that you know what it was like not to have had money and therefore you work and you graft and you grind. I think very few people feel that they're well off, Dawn.
Absolutely. And can I just say that, you know, when I was younger, roughly the same generation even, you know, inflation in the 1970s was the highest. Unemployment was the highest. It wasn't easy being young people when we were young. So, and we've worked hard all our lives. We've paid in. You know, the pension isn't a benefit. It's something you've worked hard and you've contributed to all your life. Same with national insurance. So why can't we treat older people with the respect they deserve? They've earned this.
I think that's a good word, respect. I think respect goes out the window.
Let Angus have a final word in this.
But that's not right, because older people have much more housing wealth than younger people are likely ever to get. They have much more generous pensions than younger people are ever likely to get, and they're paying less tax.
So you're telling someone watching this programme now who's sitting freezing in their big house that they are well off and they should consider themselves lucky? I'm sorry, I find that appalling.
No, we're very concerned about poorer older people. We're not so concerned.
Who are millionaires because they've got expensive properties that they can't sell?
Well, there's value there that one way or another they can crystallise. And one possibility is to have a lodger so there's more intergenerational mixing. And of course, the government have helped sensibly with that and said that income from lodgers up to 7,500 is tax-free. So there are things they can do. I think 7,500 would probably pay the bills.
And Angus, do you have the ear of government on this intergenerational foundation? What do you actually do? What can you achieve? Where are you making progress? Are you making progress?
Absolutely, yes. We speak to policymakers and politicians all the time, and they are mindful of this. Quite often they're in the difficult position that off air or behind closed doors, they recognise the plight of younger people, but publicly they need to be very supportive of the older generation because there are more of them and they're more likely to vote.
OK, that's it summed up. Guys, really appreciate that. Dawn, Angus, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Stay with us. After this, we'll be going through the papers with Freddie Gray and Stephanie Tetchy.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here come your papers. Wake up to these on this Thursday morning in the company of Freddie Gray and Stephanie Tetchy. Freddie, let's begin with the latest from the Daily Telegraph, the Matt Hancock revelations.
I think this is a great story.
Firstly, because it shows Matt Hancock in a good light, which he hasn't been shown in a lot, very much recently. It emerges from these fantastic lockdown files that Telegraph's been doing a lot on in the last 2 weeks, that Matt Hancock, in his book, in his memoir that came out last year, he wanted to make it clear that he thought the lab leak theory, the idea that the virus leaked from a lab in China, was likely. And that the passages in his book were removed by the Cabinet Office, saying that they were national security concerns, and that the official line was that the location of the outbreak near this military lab in Wuhan was entirely coincidental. I think this is probably the biggest scandal of the last century, because for all the stuff we row about lockdown rightly, we criticise the government rightly, but the origins of the virus are absolutely essential. It's also essential to our understanding of how we contain the virus, the origins. China has never been transparent about what happened. The US intelligence now thinks it's most likely it came from a lab. If that is true, China has a lot to answer for. We have wrecked the global economy over this virus. We have caused untold misery has been caused. And yet there is this strange official silence, which is what you get from the Cabinet Office here, about talking about it, because people are very nervous about criticising China.
Yes, and why?
Because China is an extremely powerful country who can financially control a lot of the globe.
Well, that could change, could it not? If
well,
everybody...
they already own so much of this country.
But, I mean, we were talking about how their power is declining because of those aggressive lockdowns, because of the impact that the virus has had on them, because of, I mean, they're turning to talking to Russia, a sign of desperation and weakness. It's
interesting timing, too, because the Sunak administration is very keen to be less hawkish towards China than Liz Truss was. And, in fact, I think they're going to bring out a paper tomorrow sort of softening the position on China. And the Biden administration, too, while the position is this sort of twin-track approach of challenging China where you can over Taiwan or something, but also cooperating with China financially, because, we have to admit China is the factory of the world. If you take it on, if you freeze out China, you will collapse the global economy. So it has to be done very carefully. But the story of the origin of this virus is a big one, and I think it's one that all journalists should keep on.
And I hope Matt Hancock can actually speak about this eventually at some point. I know he's getting a lot of bad press recently, but I think it's a question that everyone has thought about COVID. Where did it really come from? You've had millions of people who have died during this pandemic, and now we're supposed to kind of sweep it underneath the carpet and act like, oh, it's all over now. No, I think these questions do need to be answered, and our government do have to, hold China to account. The whole world does.
The comparison I like to make is, imagine this virus had come from Russia.
Yeah.
And that they didn't tell us how it emerged. I mean, people would be saying it was a bioweapon. People would be saying Vladimir Putin has unleashed this virus to destroy the planet. And I'm not saying that China did deliberately unleash the virus to destroy the planet. The point is our attitude to China is very strange, and our official government attitude is cowardly, I think.
Yeah, and I actually think as citizens, our attitude to China is a bit cowardly. I think we could all do more to kind of work out where stuff comes from and avoid buying it where we can. I do try to look. Because anything that's super cheap, there's a reason, and it's probably from...
Let's get another story. Buckingham Palace was plunged back into a race row yesterday after a black charity campaigner demanded to know why it was, in her words, so hard to say sorry. This is page 25 of the Mail. Tell us more, Stephanie.
Ngozi Fulani, she's starting to get on my nerves now because, there was this whole, her big fallout with Lady Susan Hussey back in November because she asked her where she's from, and it started a big national debate whether Lady Susan Hussey was being racist. It threw the royals under a bus when they let go of Lady Susan Hussey, who's now back into the royal fold. But now, in a recent interview, Ngozi has re-sparked this controversy, only just a matter of weeks, where she was pictured with Lady Susan Hussey accepting her sincere apology. And now she's come out out and saying, why was it so hard for Buckingham Palace to say sorry? And this comes amid her having to step down from her as CEO from Sister Space because she said that the palace failed to protect her from racial abuse. Number one, she is the one that put this out into the public sphere in the first place. If she really wanted to tackle this head on, she could have had a private conversation with Lady Suzanne Hussey, and this wouldn't have been in the papers or been explored the way it has. And now that things have settled down again, she's done this TV interview where she's blaming the palace and saying them, why did it take so long for them to say sorry? Why was it so hard? And I'm like, she's literally ending her own career.
Well,
it's time for us to move on from this conversation.
OK, could I ask you, as a black woman, were you offended by what was said, and maybe you were initially and you think, right, it's been dealt with in a civilised way, or maybe there is an unanswered question for you?
I wasn't offended because I've said previously, all throughout my career and in personal situations with dealing with, you know, white people or different people of different ethnicities, it's a standard question. Where are you from? I ask people the same thing. I feel like Lady Suzanne Hussey comes from that generation where sometimes ignorancy has been bliss. But I think it's too far to be calling someone like that a racist. Me personally, I know it's different strokes for different black people. It's not one size fits all. But in that situation, I didn't find it racist. I was offended how Ngozi handled that situation and she took it online the way she did, because now she's supposed to be someone who's concentrating on Sister Space, helping women through domestic violence. You can't do your job now because you've gone on this crusade, which should have ended weeks ago, months ago. But no, I don't think it was racist.
Stephanie, we've got to leave it there. Freddie, thank you very much indeed. The guys are going to be back in 40 minutes' time. We're going to bring you up to date with today's top stories with the time at 7:48.
Russian missiles have cut out the power supply to Europe's largest nuclear plant in a barrage of strikes against Ukraine this morning. The Zaporizhzhia plant was running on backup generators after previous attacks caused severe damage. Ukraine's military says Russia has fired 81 missiles, including 6 hypersonic missiles, on cities across the country.
Severe snowstorms and travel disruption are forecast across Britain today. The Met Office has issued an amber warning for strong winds, bringing blizzard conditions and up to 40 centimetres of snow in parts of the country. It's thought that the Midlands northwards will be the worst affected.
The King is about to learn about efforts to combat avian flu during a visit to the Animal and Plant Health Agency in Surrey. 330 cases of avian flu have been confirmed in the UK since 2021, and more than 7 million birds have been culled.
Little fashion slot now. It may have been born in the 80s, but it's been described as the hairstyle of 2023. What is it?
Yes, it is the modern mullet, and it's making a comeback.
Yeah, actors like Paul Mescal and Austin Butler have been seen sporting the do.
And perhaps they felt inspired by you, Eamonn, rocking it. What year was that?
I would say it was about 83, 84. I was probably about 24 or so at the time, 23, 24. But yeah, there's a lot of hair there. There's a lot of hair. But before you put the request in with your barber, let's get the advice of celebrity hairdresser Paul Edmonds. Very good to see you.
Hi, good to meet you.
The thing is, Paul, you and I, whatever we may have had in the past, it's just what a dream now. I couldn't grow a mullet now if I
No, I think
tried.
once you've had it, you don't go back.
Yeah, you
it's
can't
one of those,
go back.
No, you can't go back. You have to wear what's right for you at that moment. But I think it's one of those things, it's quite a fun thing for younger, sorry to say that, people to have. If they've always had really short hair, grow a mullet, just for a change. That's what's happening. We're finding that in the salon.
Have you ever had one?
Yes, I think we have a picture somewhere.
Let's have a
of
look.
us.
Oh, wow.
I was very, very young. That's what I'm going to say.
I mean, that's almost like
Girls.
more than a mullet. It's like a
that was a
flowing
full
lion mane.
But when you look at glam rock in the 70s, for instance, and the mullet would have been more into the 80s and was popularised by footballers. But the hair a lot of us had as men then was more like a woman's hair and had to be dealt with accordingly.
And you had the perm. I had a perm.
Did you?
I didn't have a perm.
I'd love to have a perm. I'd love to try a perm out.
So I had the perm, not quite footballer-like, because there was the Kevin Keegan.
Kevin Keegan, yeah.
Who was well known for it. And I think there's quite a few other people who are tennis players. I think Agassi had a completely horrible kind of short and then long.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
That was done with a hairband that he wore as well, which made it even worse.
Is a mullet a bit like a fringe in that it's high maintenance, takes a lot of work?
No, it's not.
No,
That's the great thing about it.
Collar and things.
What's happening is you're getting a lot of guys now that have decided to grow their hair a little bit longer at the back, just for a change, keep the sides short. So the modern mullet isn't like that really long thing that was there before. But you've got girls like Emma Corrin who are wearing... Miley Cyrus had it for quite a long time. And I think then it can look quite sexy.
Yeah.
I'm just not into it on man or woman, I'm afraid.
I mean, I can actually remember, getting a brush to,
blow dry under.
Yeah, to undercurl it or whatever you would try and say. But
Or
you're right.
Austin.
But I'm sorry, but Austin is just playing at it, really,
gorgeous.
comparison.
But they've both got curly hair, I noticed, Paul and Austin there. And it does look gorgeous and slightly cherubic to have a little curl at the back of your head.
Well, I think that's part of the look. It's just a little bit sexier.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever turns you on, but I'm not going to be going there.
Are you finding more clients coming through the door asking for it now?
Yeah, they are,
Oh my
which is one of those things that when you have a new trend come out, you very often think no one was ever going to do that.
Do you know what I've never done? And I've always wondered, should I shave my hair? Every man at my age, right, has got it really closely
that's 'cause they're going
cropped.
bald, probably.
Well, you've got yours very closely cropped as well. And I mean, ever since I've been on TV since I was 19, and I've basically had the same hairstyle, more or less.
Come on in.
Ever since. But do you think I should go for the shaved head look?
Not shaved head, but it'd suit you being shorter through here.
The sides?
Yeah.
You see, I think that makes my face look bigger. My
It's
kids
how
said
you-
to me, they say, Dad, you're better off when you've got it short round the sides, whereas I think that it's better off, it's more fulsome round the
I
sides.
think it looks lovely. You don't need to change it at all. I don't like change. That's my problem.
Well, I tell you what, when I take it off tonight and put it in its box, I'll bear that. I'll bear that in
I
mind.
genuinely suspect when guys have really short hair, like Prince William, it's because they've got a bald problem. You've got a good head of hair, so you don't need to make people go, oh, maybe he's thinning, maybe he's worried about this or that. Just rock it.
Yeah, but do you not think you look... It all gives you a look. In the 80s, we all were much more feminine as men. So the look, when you shave your head now, it gives you an aggressive, masculine look, does it not?
No.
No. Okay.
I don't think so, because I think men are much more into their style and the way they look now than they were even then. There was the glam kind of rock thing in it, that bit. But then I think now you've got the whole thing of masculine, feminine, and, non-binary. So you've got a very different look where I think that look is quite different, because there's lots of guys out there that have the shaved heads and beards and wear a dress. So, it's all changing.
It's all changing. Paul, thanks very much indeed.
You're very welcome.
Nice trip down memory lane there. It was called Modern Romantic.
Back
in those days. Yeah. All the bands had it and everything else.
Coming up, we'll have more on the blizzard conditions facing the country. How long is it going to last? Let's get all the details now with Aidan McGibbon.
Hello, a very good morning to you. We're going to see further wintry weather today and into tomorrow. It's staying cold in the north. There'll be further snow across central parts of the UK, but actually in the south, we're in the mild air again, with rain more likely than snow across southern parts of England and South Wales. And it is a band of rain that's moving in from the southwest, which will bump into the cold air and through the rest of Thursday lead to some significant snowfall across parts of North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and then eventually parts of Northern Ireland as well. Scotland stays largely dry and bright, some snow flurries into the far north, rain showers into southern England and South Wales with a gusty wind here and much milder than it has been. But the risk area for that snow is where the mild air bumps into the cold air. Temperatures at sea level around 2 degrees, but over any hills below freezing. And so I think that for North Wales, North Midlands into Northern England, Northern Ireland, we'll see rain or sleet at the very lowest levels, but above 100 metres, the risk of significant snow and significant disruption, especially for the North Pennines into the Peak District area. Above 100 metres, 10 to 20 centimetres of snow building up. That includes the likes of Leeds, Wakefield, Sheffield, Bradford.
and above slightly higher elevations, the risk of up to 40 centimetres of snowfall, along with a strong wind with blizzards and drifting of the snow. That's why there's an amber warning, because that would cause significant disruption. The spells of rain, sleet and snow push south again on Friday morning, eventually petering out, and by the afternoon many places are drier and brighter. Some decent sunny spells emerging once again away from the far south and far north. Further snow showers into Scotland on Friday and throughout the weekend, but on Saturday for many it starts off dry, albeit cold, and we'll see another band of rain move in from the Atlantic, turning to snow once again in places, but particularly over northern hills.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michael Portillo. You can join me every Sunday on GB News. Remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and to download the GB News app to stay up to date with the latest GB News content. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The Met Office issues a risk to life warning as the country braces for 40 centimetres of snow.
Good morning, it's 1 minute past 8. It's Thursday, the 9th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Very nice to have you on board, leading the news this morning. The country's facing major disruption today as the Met Office warns of blizzard conditions. There'll be travel delays, road and rail closures, power cuts and potential risk to life, all expected as amber warnings come into effect.
France and Britain are working on a deal to stop small boats crossing the Channel ahead of a meeting between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron tomorrow. The summit follows the PM's announcement of a new hardline approach on illegal migration.
Gary Lineker has said he will continue to speak up after he was criticised for controversial tweets comparing the government's migrant policy to that of Germany in the 1930s.
And the Princess of Wales dressed in army camouflage yesterday as she joined Irish Guards in the snow for battlefield injury training. The exercise on Salisbury Plain is her first duty with the Guards since becoming colonel last year.
So why, when you were saying Irish Guards, did you say Irish Guards?
Irish Guards.
Irish. Why did you lapse into that?
I did not.
You did. You said Irish Guards.
I did not.
Irish Guards.
I didn't. Irish
did.
Guards. I just
You
gave
didn't.
some money.
You spelled as if it was. You pronounced as if it was spelled O-I-R-I-S.
I have a horrible habit of
Irish.
mimicking, but it's not mimicking. It's reflecting accents.
Mocking.
It's
mocking.
not. One of my best friends is South African, and I can't speak to her without going South
Lapsing
African.
into
and
it.
I do it with you, with Birmingham, Nottingham. What was it the other day you were cracking me up with? Say Birmingham.
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 Is that right or
Say
wrong?
Arctic.
Arctic.
Arctic. There's a C in there. Anyway, get in touch the usual way. You can tweet us, you can email us, you know what to do.
Okay, let's get on top of this snow story today. Blizzard conditions are expected to cause major disruption from about 3 o'clock this afternoon as the Arctic snap continues to grip the country.
The Met Office has issued an amber warning from 3 p.m. Of 40 centimetres of snow predicted in some parts.
Well, let's now go to Paul Hawkins, who's in Otley in West Yorkshire. It's coming down already.
It is indeed. I mean, it's coming down. It's tiny little flakes, and to be honest, there's no disruption here at the moment. There will be later, though, with that amber warning in place from 3 p.m. this afternoon. A kind of finger extending down the spine of the country from the Midlands, from Stoke, and then onwards into Yorkshire, the Pennines, and the Yorkshire Dales, heading up all the way to Durham, and that's the amber warning. That's a significant warning. When you talk about yellow weather warnings that are being in place across a lot of England, parts of Wales, also some parts of Scotland right now, that's for ice, and they are less severe than an amber warning. Amber warnings basically mean that when this snow arrives this afternoon, combined with gales, there will be significant disruption to roads, also to mobile phone networks. Rural communities, so those in the Pennines and in the Peak District, could receive up to 40 centimetres of snow, which, when you add in the effect of the blizzards blowing that snow back onto the roads, it's quite likely that those rural communities will be cut off. So the advice, as ever in conditions like this, is don't go out and travel unless you have to. Stay at home, make sure you prepare adequately for the next sort of 24, 36 hours, because if you live in those areas, in that central part of the country, it will be significant. But at the moment it's coming down right now. There isn't really any travel disruption right now, but that will kick in later today.
Paul, either your mic is frozen or it's buried under the layers of clothing that you've got there, but we've got big problems with your microphone, mate. You don't want to expose it a bit more? You want to try and see? I don't know where it's concealed, but just to see if it makes any difference. Let's try that.
How's that? Is that better? Is that better?
That is better, yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, how long have you been doing this job?
Is that better?
That's much better, mate. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, true.
Well, listen, so what's the forecast for Otley? What's the prediction?
Cold, frankly.
Yeah.
Listen, it's going to be up to at least 10 centimetres of snow here. Temperatures falling to close to freezing. It's going to be difficult to get around here later on from 3 o'clock onwards, as I was saying with a very muffled voice probably. It's going to be difficult to get around here and with the blizzards blowing the snow onto the roads, it's likely that rural communities in the Pennines and in the Peak District are going to be cut off. There could be a disruption to mobile phone coverage and the power networks, but everywhere along that spine of the country, stretching from Stoke up to Durham, through the Pennines, through the Yorkshire Dales, through the Midlands they're going to get at least 10 centimetres of snow. So that is why that amber warning is in place for those parts of the country. And let's not forget that the big difference in the range of temperatures, actually, because if you're watching us in the southwest of England right now, it's wet and it's about 10 degrees. So there's a big temperature range across the whole of the UK, and we shouldn't forget that today.
Stuff, Paul, thank you. I'm just looking at pictures and we'll try and turn them around and make sure we can bring it.
I want to tell Paul something. Yeah. Paul, you know what Otley's famous for? Otley's famous for what's called the Otley Run. Have you heard of the Otley Run?
I've not, no, go on.
Well, apparently you dress up in fancy dress outfit and you do one big pub crawl. I don't know how often they run it. I don't know how often they do it. But anyway, you can sign up for the Otley Run while you're there.
It sounds more like the Otley Crawl, to be honest. But yeah, I'll go and check it out and see how they're getting on.
Thanks,
lad.
Paul.
Thank you.
I should say there's some footage online, and we'll try and turn it around and bring it to people, of a snow tornado that was spotted in Shetland. Really rare. Well, farmers spotted it when they were out feeding their sheep. Incredible pictures. So we'll see if we can turn that around and bring those to you. But I've just seen those online, and yeah, there's some pretty extreme weather going on in places at the moment.
OK. Let's have a look at some pictures here. And this is David, and he says he's loving the show this morning.
Oh, thanks, David.
Our bright, uplifting show, as bright as his window there. That's his window in his hospital.
Oh.
He's in his hospital bed, and he had a left hip replacement yesterday. So good luck to you, David, and you'll be up and about. Well, they'll have you up already. You'll be walking
I've nursed
on
people
that.
after hip replacements, and
Have
you
you?
just have to, they just get stapler, don't they? All down the leg.
Did I ever show you my scars?
No. That's a whole
Beautiful.
other programme.
Works of art. Works of art.
One of the viewers, Keith, sent this picture of his garden this morning. This is in
Birmingham.
There we go. Very snowy there. And Sue has sent this picture from Cheshire. Not as exciting when you say it. And there's been no snow there. Oh.
Oh, yeah, that's the way it is. But they reckon from 3 o'clock this afternoon, from about Stoke-on-Trent northwards, everything's going to turn white, they reckon. Right, let's get into other news now. And France and Britain are working on a deal to stop the small boats crossing the Channel ahead of a meeting between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron. That is going to happen tomorrow.
Yes, the summit follows the Prime Minister's announcement of a new hardline approach on illegal migration. Let's get more on that now with our political reporter, Olivia Utley. Good morning to you, Olivia. So are we going to see a genuine warming of relations between the pair, the bromance, or is this going to be fuelled by, let's be honest, a bit more cash into the palms of the French?
Well, I think it definitely will be a warming of relationships between Britain and France generally, but of course we're going from quite a low base. Boris Johnson and Macron were barely on speaking terms by the time he left office. And then Liz Truss's relationship with Emmanuel Macron was possibly even worse. She said that she wasn't sure if the French president was a friend or a foe. So Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron have a better relationship, le bromance, exactly. And obviously the Northern Irish Protocol bill sort of paved the way for a better relationship. But, as you say, there is certainly an element of the French pushing very hard for more cash. Over the last 7, maybe 8 years, the British have given $232 million to the French to help the policing of those northern beaches in France. The last injection of cash was just in November, when Suella Braverman promised $63 million to have British soldiers watching from French beaches to monitor the migrant situation. And Emmanuel Macron will now be asking for yet another injection of cash. Rishi Sunak may well agree to this. He is fighting on enough fronts at the moment not to add another one to the mix. Obviously, he's dealing with the idea that this could be held up in the courts. We know that his plan for if the ECHR interferes here, what he's planning to do is just ignore the interim judgments, and the legislation that he's put forward actually explicitly allows the government to ignore interim judgments. So while judgments are going through the courts, Rishi Sunak can just bypass that, essentially. So he's fighting on a lot of fronts here. He will want to keep Emmanuel Macron on side. One issue which is apparently a big Elysée concern is making it easier for British and French students to go on school trips to the other country. So we can likely see a breakthrough, if we can call it that.
Why is it
there.
difficult for school trips at the moment?
Some intricacies of Brexit make it slightly more difficult than it was, and it's obviously something which Rishi Sunak can give relatively easily. So Rishi Sunak will, in some respects, be a little bit on the back foot here because he needs to keep Emmanuel Macron happy. He's got enough people who aren't happy at home. On the other hand, some of his own backbenchers are worried about giving too much money to the French. So already this morning we've heard Tim Loughton saying that that there is no point just lining the pockets of the French police even more. We're paying too much to them, and we have seen an increase in migrants.
232 million over 2 years is nothing. It's nothing. It's the price of 20 houses in the London area.
Well, yes.
No, it is nothing. So, I mean, in state terms. It's very, very little. I'd like to know what are they paying for? Overtime for the French police or something? What are they paying for?
They're paying for overtime for the French police, yes, and also for British, for the first time, this was in November, for British police officers to be stationed on French beaches to essentially monitor what's happening. But the British police officers there don't have any licence to actually intervene in what's going on. So there are some Conservative MPs who feel like that isn't a particularly good use of money.
Can I talk to you about the front of the eye this morning? This is some of the concerns being raised from within the European Union about the illegal migration bill. Last week, we can all remember Ursula von der Leyen staring lovingly into Rishi's eyes, calling him Dear Rishi. And now you wonder if they're crying, oh, dear Rishi. I mean, could this damage that relationship that he has, a lot of people say, done well to get concessions out of Europe for?
Well, certainly, because Britain will now be on a pretty precarious footing with the ECHR. As I said just there, perhaps explain in a bit of a convoluted way, but essentially Rishi Sunak is taking a very bold line with the ECHR now. Obviously, there are Conservative backbenchers who would like us to withdraw entirely from the European Court of Human Rights. Simon Clarke's a big advocate for that, and he has a lot of sway within the Conservative Party. But what Rishi Sunak wants to do is fudge the situation, essentially. So make it that when the Strasbourg court makes a law, it says that a certain group of migrants should be allowed to stay in the UK for human rights reasons. While that decision is going through the courts, Rishi Sunak has said that they will still be deported anyway, which is a pretty precarious position and will almost certainly be taken up by lefty lawyers, as the Prime Minister calls them. And that will certainly put Britain in the doghouse, if you can call it that, with the ECHR and with the European Union more generally.
Olivia, appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Time approaching 8:15. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
A man's been arrested on suspicion of malicious communications and perverting the course of justice in the Nicola Bulley investigation. It relates to footage shot inside a police cordon the day her body was found in the River Wyre. Lancashire Police said the clip was then posted online.
Boris Johnson reportedly warned Dominic Raab privately about his conduct during his leadership. It's understood the ex-Conservative leader has given evidence to the independent lawyer looking into formal complaints made.
The Alzheimer's Society says the family of movie star Bruce Willis, revealing he has dementia, has driven thousands more people to its website. The charity said it saw 12,000% more visitors in February.
I want to talk about heat pumps now, and if you've installed one, you're looking for. I'm not exactly sure what a heat pump is, what it does, and where it gets its power and whatever. I know you dig up your back garden for. We're about to find out about it, but some homeowners who have installed them have had them removed because they feel they just don't work.
Well, the government's boiler upgrade scheme gives grants of up to £6,000 if homeowners remove their gas boiler and install one of these heat pumps. But critics are saying they don't do a very good job of keeping houses warm. Let's speak to plumbing franchisee and director at MetServe Limited, Elliot Ray. What's your experience of these heat pumps then? Are they efficient?
Good morning, everyone. They are efficient, but they're only efficient in the right situation. If you're to install a heat pump in your home, primarily you would need to make sure your home is as well insulated and as carbon friendly as possible. A heat pump itself isn't the answer here. There's lots of other factors that you need to consider before installing one.
What is a heat pump? Just explain to me. If I said you come round to my house, rip out my boiler and put in a heat pump, what would that involve?
Essentially, as you mentioned just now, Eamonn, a heat pump is outside. It's a unit outside, and it is a refrigerator in reverse. So it can take the heat and transport it into your home, and you can utilise that heat to heat your hot water and your heating system. They are very efficient and they are very carbon friendly, especially if it's being supplied through electricity through a carbon friendly method, such as wind or solar. So ultimately, it is a refrigerator in reverse outside your home, feeding your home with heat for hot water and heating purposes.
Right, I'm just trying to get my head around this. So it's a cold day like today. Where's it getting its heat from?
It's getting its heat from the air. You have air source heat pumps, you have ground source heat pumps. So obviously the air source heat pumps can take it from the air. And even when it's cold, there's still heat there. The technology behind it is beyond my realms, but it works. And then for a ground source heat pump, it can take the heat out of the ground and then supply it into your home.
And that will heat my water, that will heat my radiators, yeah?
It will heat your hot water, it will heat your radiators, not to the same level as a gas boiler.
And therein lies the problem, obviously.
Yeah, but the key element with heat pumps is that you need to have a secondary source as well, which again is a more carbon-friendly secondary source. Traditionally, or more typically, you would have an unvented system installed in your home to top up the hot water or top up the heating when needed.
An unvented system.
Like an immersion heater or something like that?
Absolutely, yes. So with that in place, if you have just a heat pump, it's not there to be independent, it's not there to be solo, it's there to be the main method of heating, and then you have a secondary source to support it when it needs it. So an unvented system, as you mentioned, would help top up your hot water to another level. But I can't stress enough that when you're considering a heat pump, you also need to consider that your home, your radiators, your insulation is also of sound nature to assist it to perform as you would like it to.
So, Elliot, listening to you're thinking, right, you're still a fan of these. We're trying to get to the bottom as to why people would want them ripped out or replaced. And you think they just haven't thought about them being more than one addition to heating your home. They're the primary source of heat, but they shouldn't be the only source of heat.
Yes, primary source of heat, but not the only source of heat. Primary is a great way to make your home more carbon friendly, not the only way to make your home more carbon friendly. There's lots of other alternatives towards this strategy of trying to go to net zero that will make your home friendlier and warmer and your hot water hot enough for you.
Well, how much would they cost?
Well, heat pumps typically anything between £8,000 and £15,000, depending on the system you go for and the and the size of the home. With that, your bills are a lot less. Unfortunately, with the cost of living and the increase in electricity prices, that differential has been alleviated somewhat. Obviously, we hope that those come back down again soon. But when I speak to people about heat pumps, and it's still a growing market. The technology is still developing. This is still quite young in its stages, and the manufacturers are always developing to make it better. But when I do speak to customers and clients about heat pumps, a key element to discuss is this isn't just about the money side. Yes, things are tough at the moment. Some people consider heat pumps primarily for the carbon-friendly element rather than the money element. The money element can be a significant boost to your monthly finances. Obviously, the cost is there. The government grants are there. They can help, but it is an expensive install.
Well,
do you have one?
No, I don't have one. My home is not insulated well enough for me to consider it at this stage.
And is that where people are going wrong then? I mean, is that the common failure, perhaps? People are going, right, I'm going to get one of these, but actually they haven't bothered to insulate their home properly, and therefore they're finding that all the heat is just escaping and it's not getting to the temperature that they want it.
It'd be slightly unfair to say that's where they're going wrong. I think it's a case of understanding the flaws of the system. Even gas boilers have their flaws. Whether it be the exhaust, the risk of carbon monoxide, the cost, the fact that we're utilising fossil fuels, those are genuine weaknesses to a gas boiler. With a heat pump, I just stress that everyone really understands more. And to be fair, as installers and as plumbing and heating firms, we should be able to provide that information so you understand where those flaws are and what other elements we can do in our home to mitigate those flaws.
Elliot, fascinating talking to you. Thanks very much for highlighting all of that. We've got to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, interesting. It's like all these things. It's like electric cars.
I was just thinking that.
Were you just
you
thinking
need like
that?
a hybrid if you're going to get one of these heat pumps.
Well, then the hybrid. I've looked at hybrids, and
No, I mean like in your house, if you get a heat pump, you also have to get your immersion or whatever.
No, but it's like
with the
I'm saying all this technology is in early days.
Yeah.
It's not quite there. It's like, apparently if you get a hybrid, you get something like 7.5 miles or something on the hybrid. But it's all. It's like, and I've heard that things like solar panels, you can't recycle them. The batteries in electric cars, apparently impossible. It's going to cost you a fortune to
emails going mad.
Replace those. About what? Heat
What
pumps?
a load of rubbish. They don't work. You need double the size of radiators. They cost a fortune. I just fell off my seat laughing. Finally, the truth, they don't work. I mean, it's going crazy. I'm just watching the emails coming in. Oh, they don't like heat pumps.
Suffice it to say, you're not fans of heat pumps. So there's a lot more work to do on that.
Another example of green initiatives not thought through.
Yeah,
Gosh,
yeah.
Don't install them. We've put in biomass IITs. Oh, sorry. It's broken down. They just can't.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
You get the point.
But but that's the point. You get politicians making these decisions, tying into these agreements, and then we pick up the bill on technology that's not quite there yet. It's too early. Why? What, pay 15,000 quid for something that doesn't work?
As a society, we've got to learn and try new things and innovate.
Well, you try it, but I'll see it with 15,000 quid.
No, fair
you
enough.
do that, and I would like to burn logs in a fire.
Yeah, same.
I would like to do, I wouldn't like to clear it out or clean it out, but it's always my dream to have a house where you can burn logs. I don't have that.
I might soon. You can come round, sit by my fire anytime.
I would do that and leave you to clean it out.
That's perfect. Listen,
Nice.
we're going to talk about sport in just a moment. Spurs are crashing out of the Champions League. We'll be providing a shoulder to cry on for our beloved Paul Coit after this.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:20. 8:20.
Can you not swallow?
I just said to you, can you read this bit? I've got my mouth full. And what do? Stitch me up.
I just thought the viewers could do with it.
3 o'clock yesterday.
Well, that's your fault.
Just
What's
busy.
stopping you?
Been busy.
What? No, you're not. You're being vain.
No, busy. Stop it. Let's
No. You see, as soon as we talk about real subjects, you don't want to share with people.
Me.
It's embarrassing.
Oh. Can I carry on
So
eating?
what are you eating? What are you eating? Come on, tell people, what are you eating?
Breakfast of champions. A Freddo chocolate.
Oh, that'll be good. So I don't eat from 3 o'clock yesterday, but I eat chocolate frogs.
I just had a
first thing in the
chocolate
morning.
frog for breakfast with a cup of coffee.
Well, from chocolate frogs to chocolate real dogs, Crufts starts today in Birmingham, 8:45. We're going to be finding out what to look forward to and how you can make your dog best in show.
And as Russian missiles cut the power supply to one of Europe's biggest nuclear plants, we'll be speaking to a former army colonel and chemical weapons expert about concerns about how the plant will be cooling its nuclear waste, which of course needs generators to do that. We'll have all of that coming up in the programme.
And run the sting. It's my favourite part of the programme, the back pages. Let's run through them. Down and Drought. This is the Mirror, right? There's Harry on the ground. Another year with no trophy leaves Conte and Kane's future at Tottenham in real jeopardy. We'll have a Tottenham Hotspur expert on the programme very shortly. The Eye claims the majority of football players don't want Winter World Cups. FIFA, I think this says, FIFA Pro, I don't know what that says, anyway, what that word is, says the Qatar 2022 finals had a negative impact on players' well-being and fixture congestion, you're telling me. Wimbledon cave-in over Russia. The Mail says the Tennis Association will drop their ban on Russian players in the face of pressure from the tennissters. Not right, wrong decision.
So wrong.
Wrong decision.
Yeah.
So wrong.
I wasn't watching any of those matches.
Yeah, but I think the Wimbledon, Paul Coyte's here with us now. I think the Wimbledon fear is, of course, that they will be boycotted by other players and the tournament would attract, there would be bigger, better tournaments in less principled countries.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm glad to hear you say that, because at Wimbledon, what they did, and the thing is, they got so much flack from the ATP and the WTA, who were all saying, this is so unfair on our players. This is so unfair that poor Belarusian and Russian players are not allowed to play in your tournament. So not only have they fined the LTA £1 million, they took away any ranking points.
Disgusting.
I think it's disgusting. I just think there's such a bigger thing going on
here. When people
here.
protest about various things, and we protest and we get together, and there's going to be a big concert in Wembley in the summer for this war in Ukraine, wouldn't it be better now pitching themselves outside the door of who imposed this?
This is the WTA, this is the Women's Tennis Association and the ATP. So that it's the men's tennis and the women's tennis associations. And the thing is, I'm looking at other sports.
Have they no morals, no principles, no conscience?
We're talking about £1 million tennis players, and the fact that they've been told, look, can you understand what's going on here? Can you understand why you should sit away from this? And everybody's up in arms. Now, Andy Murray has spoken about this yesterday, and he's saying he kind of sees both sides, and he's saying that I can understand that it's unfair to tennis players, but also I understand why Wimbledon did it. And Wimbledon are the only tournament that actually made a stand.
Well, see if they understand the missiles that have rained down on the power plant today. And in the middle of winter, people not being able to have access to any energy or heating their homes or whatever, and the deaths and whatever. I don't get it with sport. You know what? It's always with money. Money.
Well, whether the ATP and the WTA see it that way, their priority, they seem to be thinking, these poor players. But there's a much bigger picture here. Can't you see what's going on and what it's doing?
If the poor players were to stand up and say, we believe what Russia's doing in Ukraine is totally evil and we distance ourselves from it.
100%, at the very least. But, you know, I just think back to the times we've talked about boycotting Russian players and events in the past. And I think Zelensky came out and said, we've had Olympians killed, we've had many of our athletes injured, maimed, sent to the front line because of the invasion by Russia. And yet these guys are still going off and performing and playing and 100%. All the rest of it. It's just...
I mean, there is one point, Izzy, which I do agree with, and I do understand, that if the players then do make a stand, and whether they feel one way or the other, and then if they do say this is a disgrace, etc., and we're very much against it, they do have family. So this is what they're worried and concerned about, is the families back in Russia, is then it can affect them. But I think Wimbledon are within their rights, I think absolutely right to do that, and I think it's really unfair to then go back and then say, well, this is wrong, what you're doing, it's completely unfair against these poor players.
Folks, let us know your view on this. I'd also just like to ask you, Paul, about the effect of the Qatar World Cup, right? Now, all I see is, you know, football clubs, fixture on a Saturday, fixture on a Wednesday, fixture on a Sunday or whatever. There are 3 games a week. I mean, the pressure, the backlog is absolutely immense now.
Well, this is FIFA Pro, and this is the union. Right. So they've looked at it and said how players are very unhappy about it. But again, and if ever we're looking at a situation with money, that's why the World Cup was in the winter, because it had to be played in the Middle East, it's played in Qatar. They came up with the money. However they got the World Cup, we know what FIFA was like at the time. Whether it's changed or not, you know, that's up for conjecture. But it shouldn't have been played then. But it's all about money and what they can get out of it, and it's just like, well, let's just put it in, and everybody else is going to have to fit around it. It just didn't work. As a viewer, I got to be honest. I didn't mind the World Cup being where it was.
But you just can't do it all.
You can't.
Can't do it all. But listen, Spurs won't be doing anything.
You need a shoulder to cry on.
But it was a 0-0 draw last night, and they went down that 1-0 defeat in Milan beforehand. What was the mood? How did you feel last night? But the big thing is now they're saying that this impacts Harry Kane, you know, not getting top-level football, and Conte, will he stay as manager?
I think probably it affects Conte at the moment more than it does Harry Kane. Spurs are still in the top 4. There was an excitement. Obviously, this is a Champions League night. It was a freezing cold night. You know, it was raining. It was horrible weather. But everybody was very excited and up for it. And the problem is that it just didn't show on the pitch. It just seemed like a regular game, and it just didn't happen. So it got more and more frustrating. Then there were some interesting substitutions where a fullback was put on for a winger, and you think, when we need a goal. Conte is speaking and just saying, well, you know, you can't expect everything to happen, and he's still not said anything about his future.
Europa League tonight, Man United, Real Betis, Sporting Lisbon, Arsenal.
Correct.
We were talking about mullets earlier on, and you've got some examples, because no one more than footballers showed the mullet in all its prime.
My favourite mullet of all would have been Chris Waddle. Had the most magnificent mullet. It's very tricky to actually find a decent picture of the mullet in action, because he was so fast down the wing. You know, of course, business at the front, party at the back as he's flying down. There he's with Peter Shreve, who was the assistant manager at Spurs at the time.
Is that Chris Waddle?
Yeah, that's Chris.
Gosh.
There we are. Look at that.
He's very young there, isn't he?
We were looking at the picture and saying, is that a tree behind him? It's no tree. That's
the hair.
Party end of the hairstyle.
Oh, get off. That's a tree.
That's the same height as a tree.
It's not a tree. That's hair. I tell you, that's curly hair behind
I think
there.
that's a tree. Well, it's just the shadow on his lapel makes it look like it could be
I'm pretty sure that's mullet. My other favourite is Jerry Francis. Now, Jerry Francis, legendary player at Queen's Park Rangers, an England player, and then came through to be a manager. But still, wears the mullet. To this day, Jerry. I don't know what Jerry's thinking, because he still insists on wearing this. So if it comes back into fashion, Jerry will be in fashion. And one more, and this is...
What a player, though, what a player.
He was a great player. He never even wore the mullet when it was fashionable. That's the weird thing, is Cam Smith. Now, Cameron Smith, the Open champion, he always talked about this mullet. He loves the mullet, a great Australian player, now plays in Live Golf. So it may be because of him that the mullets are coming back. That smile, there we are.
OK.
What a mullet.
Thanks for that. That was your sport and your fashion.
Did you ever have a mullet?
For a very short time, I had a mullet.
We need to see evidence.
OK,
Get that on social media. We'll be tweeting that out.
That's not a
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Paul Coit there with the sport. Stay with us. Eurovision. UK's entry has been revealed, and you'll be finding out about May Muller as we go through the papers with Freddie Gray and Stephanie Tecci right after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:40. We're going to go through the papers one last time this morning with the journalist Stephanie Tecci and the Spectator's deputy editor Freddie Gray. And Freddie, we're going to the Times, something that the Prime Minister has decided to call a review into after he has been told that sex education at school is getting a bit X-rated.
Yes, Rishi Sunak has ordered an urgent review into sex education, because there's been a lot of concerns, and Tory MPs are picking up on it, about what children are being taught about sex education. And it is difficult for people involved in this, because at the moment you have the internet, obviously, and children are being exposed to enormous amounts of filth at a young age. The concern is that the sex education, rather than trying to sort of steer them away from the filth, is sort of coaching them in it. I mean, there's reports that children are being taught about how to choke their partner safely. I think most people would agree that children
seriously.
Well, yeah, but you say seriously, but these kids are watching this. These kids are exposed to really graphic, unpleasant, misogynistic sexual violence, often from under the age of 10.
I agree, but don't you think the better thing would be to say, don't choke your partner? Not,
this is how you choke your partner
safely. Can you choke your partner safely?
You can choke your partner. But it's a shame that our kids can't be kids anymore, and we can't protect them. I feel like it's just brainwashing them and demonising. Sorry, can't get the word out today. Demonising their minds. It's just all full of, you know, sex pollution in that sense. And I just think, who makes these rules up, and who thinks it's OK to encourage kids with this stuff?
But what's the alternative? You don't. I mean, yeah, you say just don't choke your partner, but are they going to listen? That's what they believe. That's normal.
I think children are increasingly their first experience or understanding of sexual stuff is through pornography, and that's very, very unhealthy.
Well, I think this is where parents can also take the power back from the education system, because because I think it's about what you're teaching your kids as well. I think a lot of parents just leave it to the schools to teach their children about sex, and I think the first conversations about sex, whether it's, you know, traditional sex or modern day sex, it stems from what you're teaching your kids at home. You know, you have to have these hard talks and explore these kind of new terms with them. And I think, you know, once the parents set the agenda, then...
What do we know? I mean, not to go into much detail, but I mean, what do we know about safe choking?
I don't know. I do not know how to safely choke my wife.
Quite right, but you know, what conversations, are we qualified for these
conversations? This is where parents need to educate themselves, because if they don't educate themselves on these new terminologies, the schools will.
Why don't we just ban phones from our kids?
Whatever happened to romance?
Yeah.
You know?
I'm all for romance.
Long gone, Eamonn. That's yeah, I think
long gone.
Well, I think I'm just going to move to a remote island and have no internet and let them grow up the old-fashioned way.
But the thing is, I mean, any of us, whatever your generation was, sex education at school was a thorny subject. It's now the areas and the breadth of subjects that they have to cover and the depth of subjects that they have to cover, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, and another bubbling issue is gender, which is causing a lot of controversy in schools, because increasingly sex ed groups are trying to teach children that gender is an artificial construct.
72 genders, apparently.
72 genders.
I heard yesterday it was 180, actually.
What? That's the thing, is that sort of mad groups get involved in sex education, and then they start to dictate the curriculum. And I think that's what this review's about, and hopefully
But it'd be interesting as well, because I went to a Roman Catholic school, and they had a very stale approach to sex. So I think it depends what school you are in as well, because I think, you know, going to a Roman Catholic school, I found that they barely spoke. They just, you know, labelled it as the birds and the bees, and they didn't really get into it. So,
well, I also indeed went to a Catholic school, and in our school, sex didn't exist.
Yeah.
So we had a biology course, and there was a section 3 was reproduction, whatever, but it was taken out of our packs. All of it was taken away so that we couldn't see any of the pictures and whatever in it. Eurovision.
Yes.
Right, OK. So UK's representative is going to be May Muller.
Yeah, it's all roads down to May 13th, when the Eurovision will be taking place in Liverpool. Obviously, Ukraine won last year with the Kalush Orchestra, but it is going to be taking place in Liverpool. And our representative for the UK is May May Muller. She's 25 years old.
So are we supposed to know who May Muller is?
No, she's very fresh on the scene, but she has been writing since she was 8 years old, and she supported Little Mix on tour in 2019. So she was selected by music experts who think she's going to do well on the night, and apparently she might be going forward with a song called I Wrote a Song, and it was about her getting over her heartbreak with her ex. I think the premise of the song, I haven't heard it, so I can't judge it, but I know when it comes on the night, Eurovision entries that tend to do well are the ones that are quite catchy, so I don't know.
So it's almost as if she's been chosen by an algorithm or something,
no,
is it?
well, she was picked by musical experts who also picked Sam Ryder last year, and Sam Ryder last year landed at number 2. He was the number 2, and so that was pretty great for us. So if they've got it right with Sam Ryder, hopefully they've got it right with this woman as well.
OK, Freddie, I want to talk to you about dog attacks in the Mirror, page 8. They're up by a third.
Yes. It seems to be something that's got worse since lockdown. There's been a lot more dog attacks, and there are theories as to why this is. One is that dogs are like humans in that they need to be socialised, and that during lockdown there was not enough dogs-human socialisation, and therefore attacks are going up. But I just asked, you've got a dog expert in your green room.
We're about to be talking about Crufts.
You're about to see some very nice dogs that certainly will not attack you. And he said he doesn't buy that theory. He thinks it's just bad ownership is on the increase. And there's a sort of culture, there's almost sort of gangster culture in a lot of urban areas where having a brutal, aggressive dog is seen as cool. And that obviously leads to more attacks.
It is a worrying trend, that's for sure. It's almost something like one a month, isn't it? The fatal dog attack.
I have, as I think I've said before, I have a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and I do notice that people are quite frightened of her. Yeah, which they absolutely shouldn't be.
Are you good, responsible dog owners?
Incredibly good.
There you go.
Yeah. We teach her about safe sex and all.
Stephanie, up to you. Final story.
Michael Caine, well, he's never been one to mince his words, and he's come back and said it's a load of bull, that his film... Can I say bull? Is that...
You've said it now.
Oh, I hope that's OK. He said that his film Zulu, a counter-terrorism programme called Prevent, have placed Zulu on a list saying that it could incite racial hatred, and also it has acted as key text for white nationalists and supremacists. And Sir Michael Caine has said that he has no regrets on any films that he has filmed in the past or any parts he's played. And to be honest, I'm really tired of, old classic films being brought into such arguments and debates. I'm like, let art be art. In terms of trying to address, racism and supremacists, we have to see that at a grassroots level and not films.
It's a magnificent film.
Yeah.
I was never aware of any undertones except a regiment of the British Army slaughtered, basically, by the overwhelming numbers of Zulus that attack them, and then it's a subsequent film, Zulu Dawn, as well. But it's a very good film. That's all I can say. I didn't come away feeling supreme as a white person. But so Michael Caine says it's a load of something.
And the fact they've spent £50 million for this terror unit, and the fact that they're using it to just place a film like Zulu on the list, I think is a waste of money and a waste of time, frankly.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, we'll say goodbye to both of you, Freddie and Stephanie. Thanks for your time today. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. So we're now going to talk about doggies, and the best behaved ones in the country are gearing up for the first day of Crufts in Birmingham later today.
Yes, 4,000 are going to be competing for the top award of Best in Show. Gosh, that's a lot. Which is presented on Sunday. And we're going to head to where it's all happening and speak to Head of Health and Welfare at the Kennel Club, Bill Lambert. Good morning to you, Bill.
Good morning to you both.
Look, we've just been talking about some of the worst behaved dogs, but you'll be showcasing all the reasons that we could be really proud of our four-legged friends.
We will indeed, and your partner there said that it's down to responsible dog ownership, and actually that's what Crufts is all about. It is a dog show at its heart, but it's a dog extravaganza, and there's everything here for dog owners and dog lovers, everything they can ever want. But you are right, we've seen a huge increase in dogs ownership during lockdown, and of course that has brought with it a number of problems. But here at Crufts, you've got lots of responsible owners with their happy, healthy dogs, and it's a great celebration of dogs, quite frankly.
Sorry, I didn't hear a word you said.
Sorry, Bill. The reason is, well, we did hear a word you said, but it's we've got visitors in the studio here. Two little dogs that have come in. I don't think they're being exhibited at Crufts, but they're being exhibited in the studio here today. So I hope you're not affected by the snow, Bill.
No, the roads are nice and clear. We were a little bit worried this morning. We came out of the hotel, but the roads are nice and clear. There is a bit of snow. And but I saw people streaming into the event, so I think people left a little bit earlier, and we've got no problems actually here around the NEC.
Okay, and in the studio we've got Robin and just you, Robin. Yes, Robin and his.
Well, you say just you, but you're forgetting the important ones here.
He's got Ash, an Italian greyhound, little mini.
This is Ash.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dog, Ash. And Isabel, your dog is a Cavapuccion called
might never
Luna.
give you this puppy back. Is this a puppy?
It is a puppy. That's Luna, and she's probably like 10 weeks now.
Can I keep her?
No, she's going back to her owners today.
Keep her forever.
She's amazing,
I'm
right?
treating her like a baby already.
Absolutely
I'm sort of
amazing.
myself bouncing.
Yeah.
Sorry, but look, we're talking all. I need to close my laptop, I'm being told, so we can get a good view of the puppy. Don't worry, puppy. I'm just moving my papers around. There we go. Look. There you go. Oh.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, I know you're obsessed with Luna there, but Ash, I've never seen a dog like Ash before. Tell me about...
Italian greyhound.
Yeah?
She's just over 3 months old, I think 3.5 months old.
Does she get bigger?
Not that much bigger. She'll grow a little bit, but they're tiny little dogs. Look, and she's got such long legs. She's beautiful, right?
Oh my
So she's small and she will run very fast, will she?
I'm not so sure about running very fast, but she is the most cuddly, gorgeous dog. She just wants to nuzzle in and cuddle you. And
are you an exhibitor? Will you exhibit these dogs?
I won't. I'm not at Crufts this year. I've been many times before. I love Crufts because you get to see every breed of pedigree dog, of which there's over 200.
Yeah.
You get to see what they're all after, the best in show, the coveted prize.
No.
But I do think if we put Ash in, she could be best in show. What do you think?
I'd definitely be very...
I'm totally not involved in this conversation. I'm having my own little... Oh, you look... She, yes?
Yeah, she.
She's just trying to snuggle in. Hi.
She is a Cavapuccion.
Cavapuccion.
Right, so what does that mean?
So that's a King Charles Cavalier.
Yeah.
A poodle and a Bichon Frise.
Gosh, I'm completely
Cavapuccion.
Gosh, so she's totally engineered then, is she?
Yeah, she's totally engineered. It's a really popular breed. Everyone loves the King Charles Cavalier. And the poodle and the Bichon bring in a curly coat, which is hypoallergenic.
Go for a walk.
So,
yeah.
really very popular.
Don't be scared. Oh, she's a bit soggy round the back. I'm hoping. Oh, we won't dwell on that. Oh, she's very sweet.
Very, very nice.
We should talk about the best in show today.
Yes, OK.
Oh, no, you can't drink that.
You can't.
You cannot drink that, little one. Sorry,
She's a dream.
you take over, Eamonn. I'm a bit distracted.
Because that gin won't go down well at that time of the morning.
Hello.
So, Bill, from your point of view and at Crufts, I mean, how many people are you expecting to turn up over the next few days till Sunday, I believe?
Hello.
150,000 people through the door, so it's a big, big show. Of course, it's people from all around the world, not just the UK. We've got about 3,000 dogs from overseas, so it's like really like the World Cup final for dogs. And it's become such a big event. It's growing year upon year. Had a little bit of a dip during COVID, of course, but we're back with a bang this year.
And where do you stand? I mean, like, we've got an Italian greyhound here and a Cavapuccion in the studio. Are there new categories all the time for new breeds?
Yeah, there are new breeds, but breeds, we have 222 breeds at the moment. We've got a new breed at Crufts this year, the Bavarian Mountain Hound, which is a dog we've not seen before. They're a bit like a beagle, lovely russet brown colour. They're a little bit longer than they are tall, but I can tell you lots about Italian greyhounds, for instance, which are great dogs, and they will run, they will actually hunt, but they're lovely, loving companions. Of course, when you get a Cavapuccion, which is a mix of 3 breeds, a little bit more difficult to predict. So they don't necessarily take all the genes that you want from the sides of the pedigree. So a little bit less predictable, but and that's why pedigree dogs have become so popular over the years.
Well, Bill, I'm assuming you're a dog owner yourself. You're head of health and welfare there at the Kennel Club. What's your favourite dog, or what has been your favourite dog, type of dog, breed of dog throughout the years?
Well, I grew up with bull terriers. My parents had bull terriers. Luckily, as I've got a bit older, I've downsized now. I now have miniature bull terriers, which are one of our vulnerable breeds, one of the breeds that we really concerned about because they're dwindling in numbers. So I've got those now, but they fit my lifestyle. I've had them all my life. I know all about the breed. They're not the breed for everybody. And that's why we're really trying to promote responsible dog ownership, getting people to choose the right breed for them. With 222 different choices, they all have different characteristics, all unique in their own way, and you can find a dog to fit your lifestyle.
Thank you, Bill. Got to say goodbye to you. Have a good show. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
So, Robin, the thing is, are these dogs yours, or are these for sale?
No, these are clients' dogs, but I do offer a puppy finding service.
Suddenly very interested in a Cavapouchon. Oh, don't go too close to the edge, little one.
So, yeah, I find all sorts of dogs for clients. We always have to focus on trying to find very healthy puppies.
Yes, yeah.
So we look for DNA health-checked parents in these days. If they're DNA, they can check for over 200 diseases. And we're looking for people, you know, ideally dogs from very ethical breeders who don't overbreed their dogs. So, you know, 1, 2,
you've got two beautifully curious dogs with lovely temperaments. That's the thing about them.
Very sweet.
We've got to say goodbye to you. Thanks very much, Robin.
I'm sorry, I was totally useless then. I was
absolutely
transfixed
fine.
by
It's so
Luna
lovely
and
to
Ash
come in.
there.
My pen's
stolen your pen.
She's taken my pen away.
Very attached to that pen. I've learnt the hard way. You can't have it, Luna. You can't have it.
She's adorable.
Brilliant. Absolutely adorable.
Listen, we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you so much for bringing in Luna and Ash, and nice to talk to you. We're going to be talking about school closures. Lots of disruption this morning, not only to services, but also to some of the roads out there. We'll have all the details straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michael Portillo. You can join me every Sunday on GB News. Remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and to download the GB News app to stay up to date with the latest GB News content. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank,
fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Schools and roads close as the Met Office warns of 40 centimetres of snow.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you. It is 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 9th of March. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Met Office has issued an amber warning with disruption on the way and a threat to life amid blizzard conditions.
Yeah, there's an amber warning in place stretching from Stoke all the way up to Durham. Snow and blizzards on the way from 3 p.m. through to midday tomorrow.
France and Britain are working on a deal to stop small boats crossing the Channel ahead of a meeting between Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron tomorrow. The summit follows the PM's announcement of a new hardline approach on illegal migration.
Gary Lineker has said he'll continue to speak up after he was criticised for controversial tweets comparing the government's migrant policy to that of Germany in the 1930s.
Russian missiles have cut the power supply to Europe's largest nuclear plant in a barrage of strikes against Ukraine this morning. Russia reportedly fired 81 missiles on cities across the country.
And the Princess of Wales dressed in army camouflage yesterday as she joined Irish Guards in the snow for battlefield injury training. The exercise on Salisbury Plain is her first duty with the Guards since becoming colonel last year.
No, and you did it again.
I didn't.
You
It's
did
just the way I
it.
say Irish. Irish Guards.
Irish.
Irish. I just said Irish.
No, you didn't. You did it with an accent.
Irish Guards.
Irish. Irish. You did the Irish Guards there.
So I didn't.
Yes. So anyway, you know what to do. Get in touch. gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet at gbnews.
OK, it's leading the news this morning. Blizzard conditions expected to cause major disruption today as the Arctic snap is continuing to grip the country.
Now, you're saying the Met Office has issued another warning.
Yes, new warnings for Wales with a threat to life there. And they've also issued amber warnings from 3 o'clock this afternoon with 40 centimetres of snow predicted across parts of the United Kingdom.
Well, I tell you what, let's go to Paul Hawkins. He's in Otley in West Yorkshire. The snow has been, it's gone, but it's coming back again, Paul.
Yeah, morning, Eamonn, morning Isabel. That's pretty much it, really. In fact, since you joined us an hour ago, we're standing on the Chevin, which overlooks Otley, which I can promise you is in the distance over there. But because the snow is starting to get that little bit heavier and the wind is just starting to pick up, you can't see it now. But I promise you it is there at the moment. And this is going to be the continuing theme for the next sort of 24, 36 hours as the snow becomes heavier and the wind picks up. At the moment, it's 0 degrees here in Otley, but it feels more like sort of -2, -3 as the wind is picking up. And that amber warning is in place from the Met Office, stretching from Stoke all the way up to Durham, through Yorkshire, through the Yorkshire Dales, up into the Pennines, and that means that major disruption is possible. Certainly to the roads as the wind blows the snow onto the roads, making it very difficult for the gritters, very difficult for the snow ploughs. But it also means that potentially rural communities, especially in the higher areas, could be cut off. There could be a significant disruption to the power, also possibly the mobile phone networks. And just to give you an idea of this, the effect that this Arctic blast is having across the UK, in Scotland overnight they recorded the lowest temperature, the coldest night of the year, -16 degrees in Altnahara. So that's the coldest temperature this year. That's actually the lowest minimum temperature recorded in the UK in March since 2010. And I thought this was quite interesting. One Met Office spokesperson said that it's actually more common to get snow in March, statistically speaking, than it is in December. I didn't seem that obvious to me, but that's the state of affairs at the moment. It gives you an idea of the temperature, certainly across the spine, across the middle part of England, through the north and through the Midlands. Don't forget, though, in the south, in the southwest at the moment, it's going to be about 10 degrees today and raining. So big temperature range across the UK. But there are also those yellow warnings, those less serious yellow warnings in place across parts of Wales and in northern Scotland as well for ice and freezing conditions.
Yeah, well, actually, it's been updated that the picture in Wales, Paul, the Met Office in the last few moments upgrading that warning to amber. Snow expected across parts of Wales from midday today. They're warning of persistent and at times heavy snow, possible freezing rain, icy conditions, power cuts and travel disruption highly likely.
Thanks, Paul. Got to leave it there. Thank you. From Otley in West Yorkshire, here in the studio, Norman Baker commentating on some of the stories that we're dealing with today. Does the weather perturb you? I know in London, I think it's passed, it's been and gone, but it's going to be from Stoke-on-Trent northwards from about 3 o'clock. And as Isabel was saying, Wales there midday.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, statistically, that's interesting that there's more snow in March than December.
Yes, we've heard that yesterday as well from an expert.
Easter, more likely than a snowy Christmas.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very seasonal to me, having snow in March. And does it bother me? I mean, my daughter's in Hawaii at the moment. So she sent me some lovely pictures of Hawaii, and I sent her some pictures of snow from Lewis.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But are you prepared? Do you have like a shovel in the car and that sort of thing?
I don't have a shovel in the car, but I tend to go by train, as you know. But, of course, when there's a light snowfall within 50 miles, the network can shut down.
Right, we're also going to... This will affect channel crossings as well, and Rishi Sunak will meet with Emmanuel Macron tomorrow on all of this. What is this pressure that we can put on the French, and is the entente cordiale sort of working?
Not particularly. I mean, clearly Rishi Sunak and President Macron have tried their best, I think, to restore normal relations after years of hostility after Brexit. Unnecessary hostility, I might say, but hostility. But it's all going to kick off again, I think, with this illegal migrants bill. And can I just say what's illegal about it is the bill rather than the migrants.
Some people are calling it the illegal migrants.
It is illegal because it's breaking international law. We can't just go around in a cavalier way of breaking international law.
Well, the government are confident that they're not, and with their Rwanda scheme, that was, unequivocally, as the Prime Minister said in his own words at the press conference earlier this week, found to be lawful. It's being challenged and it's going to the Court of Appeal. They're testing the boundaries. At the moment, it's not been found to be illegal.
No, but even the Home Secretary, who's the architect of this, said there's more than a 50% chance it would be illegal under the European Convention on Human Rights, which, by the way, as your viewers will know, is not related to the European Union. It's a different situation altogether. But, we're talking about people who in many cases are coming to the country irregularly, not illegally. It's not illegal to come and claim asylum. It's illegal to refuse to leave if you've been found not to have a case. They're coming here irregularly. Some of them have been subject to torture, threats of death and everything else, and they're being treated as criminals and locked up. That's not the kind of country I want to live in, personally. We've got different standards to that in this country. If we look at our history of how we've engaged with people who have been threatened with torture and so on, it's completely
But Norman, sorry, on that point, I can just hear lots of people frustrated with what you're saying. And look, we have a proud history of, as you say, looking after those at their lowest moments. But this system is being gamed as the way it is. And this is what the government have said. We've got tons of Albanians, usually of healthy working age, leaving a country that is trying to accede into the European Union, that is a member of NATO, perfectly capable of, they're just economic migrants. They're not here seeking asylum. So what the Prime Minister is saying is that this bill will enable us to sift out those sorts of people, and then we can fairly support those who have genuine asylum claims?
It's not sifting out, because by definition, under the government's proposed legislation, everybody who arrives on a boat, everybody will be deemed to have no case and not be allowed to stay now or any time in the future. That's not sifting.
But they will allow legal routes in the future once they've dealt with the crisis at the moment.
Well, they're not allowing.
It's unsustainable in the current form.
Of course it's unsustainable, and there's things they could do to deal with that. For example, they could deal with... the Albanians are a particular issue, I agree with that. They could do a deal with the Albanian government to return those people, because that's a safe country. They could speed up the processing, which they haven't done. So there are things you can do. Can I just talk about Gary Lineker briefly while we're on this?
Well, we're going to talk
subject?
to you more about some of the big stories of the day a little bit later in the programme, but we're just going to zip away to another really important story.
This is in Zaporizhzhia, and the nuclear power station there today, which we hear has been shelled, and the implications of that. It's lost a power supply, 80 missiles fired by Russia. Let's now go to, who are we going to?
We've got Hamish de Breton-Gordon, who's the British Army officer and chemical weapons expert and regular on the programme. And Hamish, look, this is seriously worrying when the power supply has been lost, because, of course, that is what is all important for the cooling of the nuclear rods. And there will be concerns this morning about what that means about the international security of a nuclear power station.
Good morning. Yes, absolutely. This is a huge concern. And only last week, Signor Rossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said that they'd done an in-depth study of Zaporizhzhia, and the place is in a shocking condition. This is the largest nuclear power station in Europe, containing a huge amount of nuclear fuel. And the only thing between it and a nuclear radiation disaster at the moment is some aged generators, which are cooling the nuclear fuel rods in the reactors, and probably even more worrying, cooling the spent nuclear fuel rods, which are outside in ponds. Now, if some sort of accident happens, some sort of improvised nuclear device, the radiation could spread across, vast tracts of Ukraine, even vast tracts of Europe. And we know in this country what happened when Chernobyl, a nuclear power station much about the sixth the size of Zaporizhzhia, caught fire in the 80s. We got a lot of radiation in North Wales. So this is a strategically important event, very callous. We know that the Russians are trying to bring Ukraine to its knees by attacking civilians, attacking the power supply. And of course, 60% of power for Ukraine came from nuclear before the war. So this is potentially a disaster. We should get a demilitarized zone as soon as possible around Zaporizhzhia. And both sides, should get together to make sure that...
Hamish, just let's be clear on this. I mean, the Russians will say this is accidental, it's been caught up in crossfire, whatever it is. But do you believe this is the power station has been strategically targeted?
Oh, absolutely. We know this very clearly. The Russian tactic of, unconventional violence to attack the civilians because they are being defeated by the Ukraine military. I saw it at very close hand in Syria. So this is a deliberate act. Putin himself has said he is switching the lights out and the power out in Ukraine. And when a lot of that comes from nuclear, you must assume that these missile strikes are deliberate. The other thing to consider is there were, and I think there still are, hundreds of Russian troops in and around these nuclear sites that are using it to launch attacks. So the chances of accident are incredibly high. This is Russian roulette with the most dangerous potential explosive situation, and must be brought under control as soon as possible, because, as I said, it could affect us in the UK if it goes up.
National Atomic Agency has also expressed that we are, as you say, playing Russian roulette here. How worried should we be here in the UK if, as you say, this could end up as a Chernobyl-type incident? Then there are genuine concerns that we could even have radiation worries here.
Well, I don't think we should be overly worried. Let's not, stop and hunker down in bunkers. It is a very, very dangerous situation, and it does require our leaders to get absolutely involved in this. The other thing is some prudent training, and what I have been doing, as I did in Syria, is running training courses on an app called Telegram, which tells civilians in Ukraine the preparation they should do before an event and what they should do if an event happens. And it would be great if you guys could retweet that today so that everybody in Ukraine knows. But let's be prepared, but let's not panic in this country. The main thing is that NATO leaders, including our own leader, absolutely get aboard this, support Ukraine as much as possible, and make sure that the Russians at least see sense and allow a demilitarized zone around all the nuclear power stations in Ukraine, and let's get the power back to Zaporizhzhia as soon as possible. Otherwise, it could produce some sort of improvised nuclear device that may well affect Europe and possibly the UK.
Scary situation. Hamish, thank you very much indeed for your analysis on all of that. To the point, coming up with Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce, 9:30 this morning. Andrew's here to tell us what you'll be discussing.
We're going to talk a lot about Gary Lineker. Can
Why?
he last? Can he survive at the BBC? Instead of apologising over the offensive comparison of the Stop the Boats policy to what was going on in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, he's doubled down. A lot of pressure from Tory MPs. Should he go?
Is he looking to be sacked?
Well, you do wonder. I wouldn't do on his salary, Eamonn, 1.35 million. I've never quite understood why anybody has to be paid that much money. You're a football fan, I'm not. To commentate on a football match once a week.
Well, he doesn't commentate. He doesn't commentate.
Well,
he hosts.
He hosts.
I could do it. Isabel could do it. You could do it.
I do it.
But he's got credibility. The thing is, he's got credibility.
But you know, the BBC is supposed to be about impartiality, and he's.
But here's the question. Here's the question, and I'd like to bring Norman Baker in on this as well. Does it matter, Norman, that Gary Lineker has a view on the refugee and the migrant situation? He's not a news presenter.
Precisely. Whether he's right or wrong is neither here nor there. He's a commentator on football. He's known for football. He's not Nick Robinson interviewing people on political matters. I'm far more concerned, frankly, by the fact that the chairman of the BBC, Richard Sharp, is a Tory donor. What on earth are we doing appointing a Conservative or donor to any party, for that matter, as chairman of the BBC? That's the impartial position. That's what the BBC should be regularising, not Gary Lineker.
OK, well, you were talking about Gary Lineker. What else?
We're also going to talk about Harry and Meghan. Do you remember they went off to America to have a private life, and they don't really like the royal family very much? Their allegations very suspicious. But their children are taking titles. Going to be Princess Archie, Princess whatever her name is.
Lilibet.
Thank you, Lilibet. How can we forget? They named her after our fabulous Queen. We're talking about that. And also, are they going to be at the coronation? I suspect Harry will be, and I hope he is.
Well, they invited all the royal family basically to come to the christening.
Yeah, but about 3 days before, and now it is in the United States, a bit tricky for the King and the Queen consort to get there.
Oh, you'll get me watching at 9:30 with Anna, get a cup of tea.
We want you there.
Andrew and Bev, to the point at 9:30. We're going to be back talking more things right after this break.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. 9:21. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex's daughter has been christened Princess Lilibet Diana at the couple's Californian home. Let's hear what the royal author Norman Baker thinks about all of this. Suddenly she's a princess.
Suddenly she is, and actually I agree with Andrew Pearce's point that they've been railing against the royal family, but they're very happy to take the bits of the royal family which they quite like. The names, the access to free travel across the Atlantic, which they'll have. They're moaning about Frogmore Cottage being disappeared off their agenda. So they're very happy to do all that, but they also want at the same time to be able to criticise the royal family.
Yes, but Norman, this is the children. The children are innocent.
They are innocent.
So Archie and Lilibet haven't decided they want to walk away from the royal family. They haven't decided that they're upset with
they haven't.
Whatever.
No.
So they're entitled to that. That's their birthright to be called prince and
Well,
princess.
I don't know. I think Princess Anne's children were not given royal titles. I mean, she took the view that that wasn't appropriate. And I think the proper thing to do, actually, with Harry and Meghan's children is to leave it till they're 18 and let them make up their own mind whether they want to have that title or not.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Yeah, to wait until that time.
Interesting that they invited the King and the Prince and Princess of Wales to the christening, but apparently not much warning given to
3 days, yes. You know, the royal agenda, well, anyone's agenda, in fact, your agenda, my agenda, is diary for days and weeks ahead. You know, you can't suddenly drop everything and go across there, California.
Interesting day of the week to get christened on as well, a Friday.
Well, I don't know many days about any other day, but...
I thought christenings were traditionally on a Sunday.
Yes. Well, they're not always, but I think they sometimes are. But, I mean, Friday is more of a Muslim day, actually, isn't it?
What have you got in the paper there?
Well, I just wanted to draw attention to this. This is the eye, and this is the unrealistic aspirations which people have got of the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, come with the budget coming up.
Yeah.
Hunt
when is this budget? Is this next
Wednesday.
week?
Yes, next week, yeah. Hunt under pressure to freeze fuel duty again. Then we got Brexiteer firms urge huge tax cuts. Over here we got calls for Chancellor to slash beer duty. I mean, actually, what kind of world are we living in? This is mad economics. Can you imagine what Mrs Thatcher, who was very keen to make sure the books balanced when she was Prime Minister, would have made of all this?
Well, there's more headroom than expected. The forecasts were worse, as they always are, and, you know, he's got a bit more money than anybody thought he would to play with. Everything's calmed down a bit, hasn't it?
What a gloss to put on that. What record borrowing have we got in this country? We've still got the £33 billion that Liz Truss lost in a couple of weeks to try and make up for that.
You can't begin to pretend, oh, we're all suddenly back to normal because a few factors have readjusted themselves on that. The cupboards are bare, and if you look at the operation of, say, HMRC, they act like thuggery. They go around and they want money back, and they, you know, if the cupboards weren't bare, I presume they wouldn't be as aggressive as they are towards people.
HMRC are quite aggressive to small people and not very aggressive to very large organisations.
Well, it sounds as though you are in agreement probably with Jeremy Hunt, both of you, because it doesn't look like there's going to be any rabbits in the hat. It's going to be fairly austere next Wednesday.
And also the fuel duty point. I have to say that if you look at a transport policy, which is my baby, if you like, over many years, it's not sensible. We've got rail fares have gone up 132% since 1997. Bus fares, buses used by poor people often, have gone up 192%. Motoring went up 58%. And in the last 10 years, we've had fuel duty frozen while rail fares and bus fares have rocketed. And the government's actually now cutting air passenger duty as well. So the government's making the most polluting forms of transport cheaper and the most sustainable forms of transport more expensive. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but they want to get us all drunk by slashing beer duty. Well, yeah. Popular.
Yeah, it would be popular, but you could all drown our sorrows.
Yeah. OK.
Right, Norman. Well, listen, always good to get your take on the big stories. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And that is it from Eamonn and me this morning. Stephen and Ellie will be back bright and early at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Up next, it will be Bev Turner with The Point and Andrew Pearce.
OK, have yourselves a good day.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain